We're going to prepare to start the meeting.
It took me a week to get over it. Yeah, that's what it is. I'm still on that week.
Well, first, good afternoon. I want to thank you all for coming. We're not ready yet. Okay, this is test then. How about that? And 1. Thank you. I want to welcome you all to the November 9th, 2023 CRC meeting, and we're excited to be here. We're also excited to have our special guest, Commissioner Uribe, and thank you for coming. I also note that we have a representative from Congressman Frost's office, Sarah. Raise your hand. We're delighted to see you and delighted to have your representation and have you here. We will, after we have our Pledge of Allegiance and our roll call, we'll have comments from our commissioner, who is the host of this meeting, and if Congressman Frost's office would like a few brief moments, you're welcome. We're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're going to have a roll call from our clerk.
Member Johnson, Member Batchelor, Member De La Portilla, Member Weinsberg, Member Cowan, Member Arias, Member Wynn, Chair Hardage, Vice Chair Shira, Member Grammer, Member Bagra, Member O'Neill, Member Staccardo, Member Adamson Prophet, Member Riley. You have a quorum.
We've established a quorum. We will have brief comments from the chair in the absence of the vice chair. I just want to extend a warm welcome to you all. We're delighted to be here. We're excited about this meeting, and we're excited to be hosted by Commissioner Uribe in her district, District 3. What we'll do today is follow the agenda as it's written. I'll have just one special thing under chair comments, and that is that I'll have legal staff start the process of giving the board an outline of how we get to the finish line, how we actually get items back to the committee, how we vote on them and get them to the public, and how we start the process of having public hearings. We'll begin to establish final dates for accepting information from the public and discussing a process for members to add items to the agenda in the event that we need to add something outside of our bylaws, which specifies how we get items on the agenda. We'll do that after we have comments from our commissioner and Commissioner Uribe. The meeting is in your hands. You have 10 minutes to make comments, and then we'll have a few brief question and answers if you desire. Commissioner Uribe.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, all right. Well, good evening, everyone. First and foremost, I want to thank you, the beautiful District 3. Some people may not know this, but I'm actually born and raised in District 3. Although not a graduate of Colonial High School, I'm a graduate of Oak Ridge High School, but it's okay. You know, I'm proud of that, because not many people can say they're born and raised in the district they represent. Not many people can say they're actually born in Florida, or much less Orange County. But first and foremost, I want to thank you all for sharing. I'm proud of my appointed members. I'm proud of the conversation and the diversity, not only in topics, but of individuals that are serving on this board. I did have a few little items I wanted to go over and just kind of share my perspective as a commissioner and things that I see. District 3 is very unique compared to all the other districts in Orange County because we're the most dense community. When you think about Central Florida, District 3 is one of the oldest, with Pine Castle and the Conway area and Azalea Park and Rio Pinar. And it's a different take and perspective. And with that in mind, I also wanted to kind of describe why I did not support Vision 2050 in its first round. And mostly it's because there wasn't a commitment to transportation and there wasn't a commitment to infrastructure. I've met some of my neighbors back here who live in the Rio Pinar area who during Hurricane Ian were flooded tremendously. And what was worse than that is that there was no plan for the county to help disperse some of this water. And so when you think about Vision 2050, which I agree it's about density and closing things up, it worries me when you're paving more and you have nowhere for the water to go. And we can't keep pushing this down the road and think that someone else is going to handle it because our residents deserve a lot better. And so I want to see that improved. And I want to see a real commitment to transportation. If we want to improve mobility and transit, we need to offer that ability when something is developed and there's a commitment to transportation. I know term limits have been talked about a lot, and while I agree with term limits, I have a concern of how short that term is. We are only 8 counties in the entire state of Florida, so out of 67 counties, only 8 have an 8-year term limit. And what concerns me about that is when you look historically how much we've regressed. We've regressed on housing, we've regressed on environmental protection, and we've regressed on transportation. And every time that we have a senior level individual retire from Orange County, the joke that they always present when they speak is how many mayors they've been through and how many commissioners they've been through. So what does that tell you? Is that the power really isn't in the elected official who's voted by the voters. The power is actually in the staff who outlives every elected official that comes through here. We just recently had one of our deputy county administrator retire, and he said he went through 30 commissioners and 5 mayors. That is, that's concerning, because when we're here to represent the people. When you look at how long it takes to get a road done or an expansion or some sort of development, you actually hear 8 to 10 years. So that means if the day we're elected, we know exactly what we're doing, who to talk to, and how to get it done, we may be lucky to see it when we're on the way out. And so when I look at that term, I do agree that there should be term limits. I think that there should be accountability. I don't want to comment on other elected offices that go on because that's not my job. But, you know, we see in Osceola and Seminole County, when I serve on MetroPlan, I'm chair of MetroPlan, we're a regional board. They're actually, even though we're 60% of the contribution in transportation, because we have the most population, they actually get more projects per dollar than we actually get in Orange County. And that again goes to the ability to govern, to have someone in office who can actually say, no, we're going to champion for Central Florida and we're going to make sure that our dollars that are made here are spent here. And that's just one perspective, but at the same time, there should be some accountability. You shouldn't be able to get elected and live here forever. I don't believe in that. That's not why I was elected. You know, they say, well, the people will remove you if there's a vote, but it's a little bit more than that. When you're seasoned and you're in here, you really know all the language, you know how to use this position, and you know how to leverage that. I also want to discuss a little about the county administrator and the county attorney. I know you guys have spoken about this topic, and neither directly serve us, the county commission or the board. They specifically serve the mayor. And where that concern happens is they should be accountable to the mayor and the board. We're all the same vote at the county. We're 7 votes. And that should be addressed directly. To hear repeatedly over the years, and not in a negative tone, we serve the mayor, is concerning, because we should be able to have access to information. We should be able to have access to resources, and we should be able to have access to their history and what things could happen and improve for Orange County, for our districts. And moving forward, it should be a collaborated effort. And I do encourage having that updated so that both the county attorney and the administrator serve not only the mayor, but they serve the board. I think there should be some accountability. The fact that we don't have any when it comes to that almost undermines our ability to govern in that way and also to request information. I don't think we should rule them, but I do believe that we should be able to request information, have those issues come up, and be able to respectfully discuss that. The rural boundary, rural settlement, and the rural area. That is a topic that we've seen come up a lot, came up through Vision 2050. It felt like it was a wheeling and dealing situation. And I actually think that we need to protect that with all our might. We're being grown very quickly, very rapidly. And when you actually look at the word boundary, settlement in an area, people just assume because the word rural is in front of it, that it covers it all. And that's not accurate. That is not an accurate statement. Each of those definitions are very, very different in how applications and variances and requests can come forward before the county commission. And I do believe there needs to be a supermajority on that, and we do need to protect it. We have not done enough to protect transportation. We have not done enough to protect water. We have not done enough to ensure that as we grow, there is some accountability when it comes to this. And we have to, one of the things that is very difficult for me, like I said, I'm very unusual because I'm in very dense inside county. It's like I'm the middle and everyone else is a donut. That's how I kind of look at myself. Environmental standard. We need a consistent environmental standard in Orange County. I see this firsthand when we have an environmental standard in Orange County and an applicant doesn't like it, a land use attorney or a group, and what do? They annex into the city of Orlando. And by annexing the city of Orlando, that standard has gone away. And this is so important that we create that standard countywide, whether you live in one of the cities that are gracious to be in our community, or whether you're in unincorporated Orange County, because, ladies and gentlemen, we're seeing this time and time again. If you ever want to take a tour in the Conway area where there is selective annexation, we're seeing this inability to be accountable to the environment, and inability that people know if you don't like the rules, you know what, find a way to annex. And that can't be how we're moving forward, because land is going away. The ability to develop, yes, we have to move forward. Yes, 800 people are moving here every week. Yes, we need more housing. Yes, we need transit. Yes, we need all these things. But if we don't have a basic accountability, what we saw in the flooding in Ian is only going to progress worse and worse and worse. And so I find it very, very important to bring this standard and make it countywide, make it accountable regardless of where you want to develop. But being cognizant of us moving forward, I think one of the hardest things as an elected official is that we come in with these dreams, and it's almost like people chuckle when you leave, because you want to change the world, but then you realize you need 6 other votes, and you realize you need to fall into the rules, and you realize you need to set to this standard that we never imagined when we were on the outside. But we can create an impact. We can do better for our community. And I'm honored. I'm honored to serve, not only for me, for the future of my children, who I hope will grow this. My parents moved to this community as immigrants from Argentina and Colombia. Some of you know that, some of you don't. So I'm a first-generation American. I'm a proud first-generation American of 2 people who came to this country, worked hard, and created the American dream. I had the pleasure of growing up in Pine Castle, having a fine education in the Orange County school system, and to this day still wear my high school ring from Oak Ridge, because you know what? It always reminds you where you came from, and never forget where you came from as you're going forward. But at the same time, as a parent to 2 children, I want to see better for them. My service here is not just for me. My service is not only for our community, but the future of all the ones who don't realize their impact it's going to be on this community. So with that, I want to be respectful with my time. I'm so thank you, Commissioner, for having me and allowing me to join you. I'm open to any conversations. There are plenty of cute little restaurants and cafes on the way in and out. Hope you'll enjoy some of the small businesses that are in this area and appreciate what we've done and what we continue to do for the fight for our community and the dignity and the service to all. So thank you.
Well, thank you. We're delighted.
Thanks.
We do have time for a few comments from the board members. I do want to make one additional comment. I wanted to have Attorney Voss to make comments. I'm going to have you make those comments when you make legal staff your comments. So you'll include the comments that we have for bringing this thing into the finish line.
Yeah, I think the mics
and
are
also,
live,
I'm
right?
going to mention that just before we start questioning, as part of his discussion, we're going to discuss a meeting schedule, which may include changing the December meeting. Okay, we'll discuss that then. Any comments for our commissioner? I have Mr. O'Neill.
Wait for it. Okay. I very much appreciated your opening comments and how the word water came up in your first or second sentence. We had a presentation of Vision 2050 with one of the committees. And at the end of the presentation, I asked the presenter, I said, you have gone through this whole presentation about your vision for 2050, but have not mentioned the word water once. The concern seems to be where these 478,000 people are going to be placed in Orange County. In addition to the stormwater that you brought up, we also need to consider where the drinking water is going to come from. And as we pave over these areas, there's less recharge for the aquifer for us to supply even the current population. How do you see the commission's goals to protect the aquifer recharge in Orange County?
Mr. O'Neill, I appreciate that comment, and thank you for realizing how important that is. You know, when I voted against Vision 2050, I was the only no. And it wasn't because it's all bad. There was a comment in the papers that it's not all bad, we're just not there. And it has to start with this discussion, and it's very discerning to me, like you said, when they presented to you, there was no discussion. They didn't even want to bring it up. It was almost like a non-existent topic. And what I've been asking is, let's talk about it. And I'm almost a little pleased that the state has come back with a lot of comments, so we're not there yet where they're thinking they're going to get a rubber stamp. Because you're right, we've got water coming, we've got quality of water, we've got aquifer, and I think this is where I kind of go with that environmental standard too, because we can do what we can also do and hopefully get there. But then if everyone else around us says those rules don't apply to us, it's going to get even worse, because that's going to be the norm. How do you get into the rules where you don't apply to us? But absolutely, I 100% that this has to be discussed. We know we're running out of it, but nobody wants to talk about it at all. And it's got to start here. It's got to start here, and everyone saw it. I mean, it has gotten to a point now that people actually get concerned when it just rains a lot, much less a storm. It just rains a lot. The community starts calling, and when we had the storm that was coming that we survived and didn't affect us, the panic in the community was enormous, because people say, well, you have homeowners insurance. No. Who wants to lose everything? Who wants to start from zero? And then how do we handle it? And I had the pleasure of joining Commissioner Wilson with the South Florida Water Management today. And that was also a topic. And the fact that the state is coming here and acknowledging, and we're unique because we're between both the St. John's and the South Florida. I think we have a lot of leverage to carry that discussion, but we need as a county to acknowledge it. And while not acknowledging it, like you said and what I've said, when I said no, I'm worried. I'm worried.
Thank you, Member Staccato.
Thank you very much for coming and speaking. And I appreciate all the things that you mentioned, because we have committees on most of these things, and hopefully we're going to generate at least another one of a topic that you spoke about overall protection throughout the county. One of the things I saw after Ian, I drove around the county for an entire day to all the flooded areas, is those areas are in places that are going to continue to flood. How do we as a county, do you see any hope that maybe, how do we resolve it? Because we have a state that's fighting us. And
absolutely, there are ways. There's better technology, there's better drainage, there's more, there's more drainage ponds, there's zebra ponds, what they're attempting to do in Orla Vista, what we're trying to do. One of the great things about Rio Pinar is that we created a new retention pond on the corner of Lake Underhill and Econ that wasn't there. We're creating swells to also allow for water. So, and we're keeping, Commissioner Fernandez is back here, but she was very famous for clearing the Rio Pinar Canal. And I'm proud to say that I keep that up now, and that it's something that we do. But it has to be a concerted effort. You can't just walk away and close your eyes and say, this isn't a problem, and how do we solve it? Because one of the issues we have, Bonnet Creek and Orla Vista, is that we're built out, and when they were built, they didn't require the drainage that is now. But the other thing that we're doing in Rio Pinar is the storm drainage. We've got better connectability, so it flows better. And also, what's very important that people don't talk about, and I think both of you will understand this, is the standard that St. John has and the standard that South Florida has, not the same. And when we had our hurricane, when we were talking about, you know, putting down the walls in Lake Conway and how that was going to affect Osceola County and all that, it's not the same, because while St. John's was saying one thing, South Florida was like, no. And so it was one of the main reasons we had in our Conway area, we weren't able to open that water body for weeks. It was one of the oldest, biggest ones that remained closed for a while because we had nowhere for the water to go also. So, but there is opportunity, there is funding. We have just had CDBMG meetings all around the county, and I made sure that my community was out representing and talking about that issue specifically because of our dents and our infill. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Member De La Patilla.
Our committee is the one that's looking at the government structure, at some of the county attorney. One of the other things that we're looking at is possible expansion of the county commission. So when the charter was created in 1986 and then in 88, they created 6 districts. But at that time, the population of Orange County was 500,000 people. Right. Today, we've got a population of 1.5 million, and it's projected to be close to about 1.9 by the end of the decade. So based on the growth that we're seeing, what do you feel about expanding the commission either by 1 district or by 2 districts? Now, the 1 district option is what is currently in place at Orange County Public Schools. They've had 7 districts for at least 20 years. They've got 8 members. The chair, Chair Jacobs, on a tie vote, her vote counts as twice, so she's the tie-breaking vote. But the 7-district plan, there's an existing map that the county commission could adopt that map until redistricting occurs in 2030.
I would definitely be open to adding 2 more seats to the county commission. And I want to say, if I tell you the parameters of my district, if you drove them with me, you wouldn't think it's as far as if you went to Horizon West or you went out to the east side and Bithlow and things. But when I tell you by what things are in my district, it'll mean a lot more, because I tell people I'm all the way down at Weatherby where Meadowwood starts, and John Young where Taft Vineland hits, and Central Florida Parkway. And then I get to Shimmy All. I have the airport, both airports. I have Lee Vista. I go through the airport. I go up to Lee Vista. I go to Dean Road. I go to Colonial. And I come down Colonial back to by the Fashion Square Mall. It is a lot of stuff when I tell you in perspective of stuff. If it were empty and we drove it, it would be different. But when I look at, I've got Pine Castle, a very dense, I don't want to say poor, but financially stricken area that has needs. Then I have in the middle this great community called Belle Isle. They don't really have a lot of needs, just stay off their lake, you know. And then we shimmy over, you know, to the Conway area. They also just leave us alone kind of. But then you get to Azalea Park and Cimarron, and they have needs. But then when you keep going, you've got Rio Pinar. Their needs are different from the needs of Azalea Park. They're very different. Azalea Park is housing and services, and us trying to actually open a community action office on the east side of town. Then you have the pleasure of going through Dean Road and Goldenrod, and it's a mix of housing, multifamily. You've got Valencia East. You've got another Puerto Rican university. Then you go to the airport. And the airport has completely different needs. And now we have Brightline, and we have all these things that are in my district. But what you do realize is everything that I've walked you through my district, you all know. You all know it's a very important, very dense area. And it's a lot of people. And in the last, because District 4 grew so much, District 3 ended up growing a lot. So I've now encompassed the Taft area, which has a whole slew of news, of information that we've got to handle there. So I almost feel like I have 5 districts in one, because my issue in Belle Isle is making sure they can ride their golf carts. I'll match it. But my issues in Taft are, we need clean water. We're septic. How do we get water? How do we get services? Same thing with Pine Castle, same thing with Azalea Park. So when you talk about transportation, you talk about transit, you talk about the needs of the community. Whenever I have events, I actually call it the East-West. I do one in Pine Castle, Taft, and then I cross over my Conway folks and I get over to Lake Underhill and Azalea Park. So the needs are very different, and I think that it's growing so much that we also are overwhelmed. I have been up and across the county, between Osceola, Orange County, now to the east side, now I'm going back to the west side last night. It's a lot to cover, and I'm glad that we've now actually increased our aides to 3, because I had an aide just have anxiety attacks because of the amount of work that was coming in. And so it's hard to represent those people, and we want to give them the best service. And I think that also a commissioner nowadays looks very different than a commissioner 20 years ago. It was a much more legislative-driven seat, and not to say because we're mostly ladies now, but we do a lot more service-driven activities. I have 3 Thanksgiving food drives. You guys are all welcome, and everyone here. But those are the kind of needs: the backpacks, the vaccinations, the masks. I mean, the reality is service now looks very different than it did 2 decades ago. And I think for us to be able to do that, I easily work 70 hours a week, and it is a lot. So it would be nice to give up 50,000 folks, you know, whatever that number comes out to. So I think it's very a real conversation, and it's gotten so big. And those numbers I think are very conservative too, because there's a lot of people who weren't counted. I have one of the largest Hispanic areas, and I can tell you, I can fill this room with people who said they never did the census because they were fearful of what that meant. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Let's give Commissioner.
Thank you very much. By the way, I was conscious of my 10 minutes because I have page 2 of notes, and I'll just keep that to myself
Well,
for the
is
future.
there anything else you'd like to add?
No. I'm appreciative because I've heard, and I think that there's a lot of a consistency of the message, and you guys are doing a lot of great work, and a lot of the things that I spoke about, you guys are discussing. And one thing I do believe that the charter review should be every 4 years. There's got to be a second level of accountability. When I talked about the term limits, where I said 8 is not enough, there should be a term limit. The second layer of accountability is a board like this. So thank you all for serving.
Thank you very much. We're going to have public comments, but if Representative Frost's office would like to have a brief statement, please come forward. And sir, will you give us your full name? I want to be respectful, and your position.
All right, I think it's on. Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Sarah Al-Badri, and I have the privilege and pleasure to serve as Deputy District Director for Congressman Maxwell Alejandro Frost. We are actually in Florida Congressional District 10. Thank you so much, Commissioner Uribe, for hosting this meeting tonight. I will say it is such a pleasure to see a packed room of citizens who are participating in our democracy the evening before a federal holiday. Thank you all for being here tonight. I just wanted to share some of the Congressman's priorities, a little bit about our district, and I will be brief. So the Congressman's district spans much of Orange County, from the Pine Hills, Dr. Phillips, Eatonville, Maitland, Winter Park, all of the city of Orlando for the most part, except for Lake Nona, out to Bithlo. So much of Orange County is actually Florida Congressional District 10. Within that district, the Congressman is focused on 3 priorities. Gun violence prevention, we've done a lot of work around that. The Congressman is very happy that his first bill, the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, was enacted by executive order by President Biden very recently. And as a result of that creation of that office, within 2 weeks, the city of Orlando received $750,000 for gun violence prevention and crime violence intervention. So we would certainly love to continue that work with Orange County. With regards to arts and culture, it's very much, if you don't know, the Congressman is a musician himself and a drummer. As part of our community project funding, formerly known as earmarks, we were able to get $1 million passed an appropriation committee for the Orange County Multicultural Center as part of its expansion. Very much looking forward to full government funding to get that across the finish line. And then finally, housing and transportation. Obviously, we know we are in a crisis with regard to affordable housing, and very much that is intersectional with transportation. With that said, we are not here tonight to encourage or promote any one of the proposals. I'm very thankful for the Charter Review Commission for listening to citizen-based proposals, but we're not here to promote or encourage anything. We're just here to listen. And finally, I just want to say, for the veterans in the room, happy early Veterans Day. Thank you so much for your service, and thank you for having us here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you. Now for the main event. We'll start our public hearing and have comments from the public. I've been told that we have 3 cards. The clerk will call them in the order that she received them. You will have 3 minutes, and then generally we won't have questions after that. If a member has a pressing question, we will of course listen to that. But usually the comments are made following the full meeting.
Thank you, Chair. The first speaker I have is Jim Later.
Thank you very much, Chairman Harder.
The
Can you hear
other,
me now?
the other white one.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Chairman Harge and members of the CRC. Appreciate your hard work. I'm Jim Leiter. I'm a longtime resident of Orange County since 1967.
Will you give us your address and also where you're from?
Oh, I am District 3. I'm in 1908 Everhard Drive near Bumby and Curry Ford.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, sir. Back in those days, we actually had orange groves and orange trees, so that's it. Anyway, like millions of Floridian residents, my auto insurance just recently went up 17%, with a note from my agent that we can expect another double-digit property insurance increase. So with that said, we're taking a major financial hit. So because of that, I am opposed to expanding Orange County government with the additional county commissioners, large billion-dollar projects, rail projects that benefit a few and operate on a $10 to $20 million a year and the public bank. So I'm opposed to. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Now, which items were you opposed to?
Oh, the public bank, expanding the county commissioners, and any multi-million-dollar rail projects.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Brian Stoll.
Mr. Stoll, please give us your name and full name and where you're from.
Hi, I'm Brian Stoll. I live at 1225 Minnesota Street in Orlando. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. In 2011, I found myself in a challenging situation, living in another state as a college student, as a college dropout actually, and working at a Blockbuster, which was on the brink of closure, of course, 2011. Seeking a change, I moved to Orange County, and I found a cheap room through a friend of a friend and secured employment at one of the theme parks. However, my wages were only sufficient to cover basic living expenses. I was, in essence, living paycheck to paycheck and struggling to make ends meet. Each day I commuted to work, I was expending a large portion of my hard-earned income on fuel and vehicle maintenance. Today, I'm fortunate to still call Orange County my home, and I've managed to secure a work-from-home job that's improved my financial stability. Somehow, despite having more money, I have realized that my transportation costs are actually lower than ever before. So back then, if there was a viable option to use my car for alternative to using my car for a daily commute, it would have saved me a substantial amount of money. Regrettably, no such options were available, leaving me with no choice but to accumulate debt to just make it to work, and no one should have to make that choice. Increasing the sales tax by half a cent will expand transportation options for all residents, particularly those who are economically disadvantaged. It's our collective responsibility to assist those in need. Once this tax is enacted, our county will continue to be an affordable place to live, if not more so, considering the benefits that these funds will provide. I implore everyone to view this half-cent sales tax increase as a moral imperative, a means to support those that require assistance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tom Caffrey.
Good evening. Thanks
Thank you.
for giving me the opportunity to talk to y'all. I am Tom Caffrey. I live at 4406 Yachtman's Court, Orlando. It's in the Conway area, and no, we don't want you to just leave us alone. But been there for 35 years, built a house there, raised a family. So, but I am in favor of the transportation tax, the half-cent tax. I was in favor of the 1 cent tax last year, but the half-cent tax for transit links would be a big improvement, I think. They're desperately in need of a predictable funding source that will keep them their heads above water. They're running kind of a shoestring operation right now, I would say. I represent Third Act Florida. We're a fairly new organization in town of seniors. I'm a retired civil engineer, and this kind of fits into my wheelhouse. But we are also broadly supporting mitigating climate change. Climate change is our big issue at Third Act. After having built a career in engineering, now I'm in my third act of promoting dealing with climate change. But because of that, we are also in favor of electrifying transportation. I drive an electric car myself and love it. Charge it off of the solar panels on my roof, which we also are in favor of. Distributed energy. We have another effort working with the electric utilities across the state to try to improve the transparency and the long-range planning of them for climate change. But I'm in favor of electrifying all transportation. That would include transit buses and school buses. I think there's a big opportunity to electrify school buses. And also we could implement shared electric vehicles, shared transit around town. I mean, BEEP is doing it right now, if you're familiar with BEEP in the Lake Nona area, and now out at the downtown campus of UCF. They're doing their electric transit shuttles. We're also promoting electrification of homes in the same vein. We are looking for energy efficiency. We'd like to see the IRA funds that the governor turned his back on. We'd like to have access to those, and we're working with other groups to try to gain access to the money that the governor turned his back on. That's the main items, and there's my time. That's all on my agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mildred Fernandez.
This is former Commissioner Mildred Fernandez.
Thank you for the job that you're doing, and it's always a pleasure to see you in good health. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Mildred Fernandez, 6029 Lake Point Drive, Orlando. I am District 3 and City, so I can see both sides of the coin. I'm going to speak a little different because I'm going to speak from the perspective of a county commissioner 10, 13 years back. And the most important key in an elected official, it's the walking during campaign. And I know that I have seen some people here really walking. That's when you develop your vision. What things does your constituents, that people that you're going to represent, needs? We also have a vision in terms of Orange County, but we need to understand that as a county commissioner, we do have some limitations in terms of decision-making. I do believe that in my 6 years as a county commissioner, the most important key is the partnership and the relationship that you develop with staff. That's key. Remember that we're all transitional. We're going to be there 8 years, and that's it. So I am for term limits because in those 8 years, your vision, the needs of the people that you represent are the ones that you're going to work with. If you don't have a good partnership with staff, we're transitional. Staff are there forever. 35 years, I have seen retirement of 40 years. So that relationship, it's key. Once you develop that partnership, you work your vision. And your vision has to be the ones that it's the needs of your residents. In my days, we had two people in staff in the office. So you become the CEO of your office, but you have to take into consideration that your main job is public policy. When you sit in that dais, you're going to make the decisions for the whole county, always thinking that your constituents are part of that. I remember very well that I wanted transportation for Semoran, and I was a member of the Links Board, but I understood very well that that was a limitation that I was going to have. So partnership and vision, it's very important in a county commission elected official. And always remember, you're there to serve the people that you represent. And remember what President Reagan always said, in times of a crisis, the solution, it's not the government. So it means it needs people making decisions, understanding that you cannot fix the world. I always think in the governor. The governor oversees 22 million people. So a county commissioner seeing 200,000 people, it's nothing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Our next speaker is Janet Carrier.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. My name is Jeanette Carrier. My address is 1321 Ensenada Drive, Orlando, Florida, Rio Pinar. And I thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm a retired insurance agent, been in the insurance business for over 30 years. My husband and I had an insurance agency, and we've represented multi-insurance companies involved with the Florida Association of Independent Insurance Agents. We were very involved with that, and the local independent insurance agents, as well as the PIA, professional insurance agents. Today, I'm here because I am concerned about the public bank, and I know you're considering it, and there's just a lot to really know about it, so I'm concerned. So, and the other things are the roads, Lake Underhill. We are doing a lot of developing, as our commissioner has conveyed, that there is a lot of density in our area, and now we're making it even more dense with more cars on the road, and Lake Underhill is way overdue for widening. And I believe it was at least 5 years ago that it was going to be 5 years that we were going to have it widened. So hopefully we can get some enlightenment on that. The other thing is the affordable housing. Several people have already spoke about how tight people's finances are getting. And every time you increase taxes, people already are having to decide, am I going to eat, or am I going to pay my rent or my mortgage payment? This is a huge issue, I think, in Orange County. And so when you are considering increasing our taxes, please keep that in mind, that your voters are feeling that. And I think that the 8 commissioners would be an extra burden at this time. In the future, yes, but I think right now it's really not a good thing for the voters. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any remaining cards?
Our next speaker is Nelson Betancourt.
Mr. Bittencourt?
My name is Nelson Betancourt, 5350 East Cayley Street, Orlando, Florida, 32812. I've lived in District 3 for 40 years. I love it here. My comments tonight have to do with public banking. Some people ask, why do we need a public bank? Well, let me give you a reason. Scott Maxwell just wrote this article 4 days ago. It's called Convention Center Lost $100 million over the last 4 years. Over the last 4 years, the Convention Center has lost about a whopping $100 million, posting annual losses as high as $32 million a year. The word squander doesn't just mean to waste in a reckless and foolish manner. It also means to allow an opportunity to pass or be lost. So we've just lost $100 million that could have financed the beginning of a public bank that could have been used to maximize the amount of money that could be used for housing, for transportation. Let me just take that back, not housing, workforce housing, real workforce housing for people that really need, housing in this area. So the fact that some people are concerned about public banking is perhaps they don't understand what it is. And I understand this is totally new to most people. But they have a completely different idea what this is. This is actually a lever that is lift the wealth of the community so it can stay here. It does not go to outside the community. It stays here for the people here, for projects here, run by folks of a board that are made up of people that live here. Okay? You do not see that in other banks that profit from our community. You know? Their headquarters are in New York, Los Angeles. And what control do we have over them? Nothing. They dictate to us what we're supposed to do with our money. So this is an opportunity for us to take control of our own destiny. What I suggest to you is that we need to have the courage, the vision, and the imagination in the public elected leaders to really take on the public banking issue, because ultimately, I think this should be decided by the voters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kevin Kelly.
Mr. Kelly, thank you.
Hello. Good to see you all again. Kevin Kelly, 4315 Indian Deer Road, Windermere, sort of, unincorporated Orange County. My wife and I came here as refugees from the North Blue State, and was fleeing the growth of, or grotesque growth of government in the community that we lived in. Okay, so as an observer of this process, I'm applauding efforts to look at the reduction of the size of government and the focus on effectiveness, efficiency, and those types of things that we need to look at how this government should be run. So more of an inward focus. I actually support the idea of looking at eliminating the mayor, because it doesn't make sense to me when I read the charter as to the relationship between the mayor and the commission. He's on the commission, well, that position is, but it's separate. And I would love some clarity on that. So I really like that. I am not in favor of expanding the county commission. If we have time to chase people, to put them in masks and stab them with vaccinations, then we have time to actually do our job, okay? So there's no place for that. So I'm looking at some of the efforts that are going on here to make our county run better and be more efficient, and I am really, really happy with the response from the community on, again, term limits, elimination of the mayor's position, and holding the commission the way it is now. In terms of term limits, I've actually had some time to go and look at a few things about that. And if the creation or the implementation of term limits, I think it was 15 or 20 years ago, was kind of the beginning of a problem, it might be an indicator of a larger problem. And what I'm getting at is if we're not running efficiently because the commissioners are saying they don't have enough time to complete their vision, then that might be an indicator of a different kind of problem, and it might take some inward focus to take a look at that. Sorry, the dry air in Florida, I can't believe that. All right, and last but not least, as a big fan of Milton Friedman, I am totally opposed to any sales tax increase. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next presenter.
Our next speaker is Donna Brown.
Welcome.
Donna Brown, 9367 Royal Estates Boulevard, unincorporated Orlando, on the border of Windermere. I'm here to speak about my opinion of being against the public banks. This is the third time that I've had the privilege to speak about this topic with the Charter Review Committee. My husband and I did go to the Orlando meeting about a week ago, and it was very effective, I felt, very powerful, a lot of energy in the room. The risk of public banks are many, but a scattered business focus, undue political influence, and lack of oversight top the list. Distant U.S. history records the experience of several state banks, and they were not happy ones. Nearly all failed, usually because of political interference that resulted in making risky loans or operating with too little capital or both, then collapsing when boom times ended. In fact, Abraham Lincoln's early speech as an Illinois legislator on January 11, 1837, criticized just this kind of political interference on state banks. I did my homework. As stated at previous Charter Review meetings, the proposed public bank would not have the FD insurance that consumers expect, meaning that their deposits would be protected by state or local politicians. Without professional regulators overseeing the bank, would the bank be swayed by the politically connected to make excessively risky loans? Or would its capital reserves become a convenient pot of money to raid for other political priorities? To that point, where would the money to capitalize the bank come from? Ultimately, taxpayers will be on the hook to provide the startup capital the bank would require, and they would be required to pay should the bank fail to manage its risks properly. As of June 30th, 2023, there were 4,071 commercial banks and 574 savings and loan associations in the United States insured by the FDIC with over 23 trillion in assets. The regulated commercial banking system has a long track record of meeting the needs of small dollar borrowers, consumer depositors, and large-scale businesses. From inflation to the huge increase in insurance premiums, homelessness, and crime, Orange County has huge problems to tackle. Why should voters add to those problems by adding to a system that works with a risky alternative that could leave us taxpayers holding the bag? And I speak on behalf of myself and my family, not of any organization. I'm also in favor of the term limits and opposed to the sales tax. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Maddie Lynch.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. My name is Maddie Lynch, and my address is 1658 Celebration Boulevard. I'm here to speak in favor of the half-cent sales tax for sustainable transit. I'm here partially on behalf of Orlando YIMBY, which stands for Yes in My Backyard. It is an organization in favor of housing, more dense housing, and more transportation options that must accompany that. By investing in infrastructure for biking, walking, and public transit, we can make Orange County a more affordable and enjoyable place to live. If we have stronger infrastructure for alternative transportation and less reliance on automobiles, we'll be able to develop denser housing for neighbors who don't need cars for their commutes. Frequent, reliable, accessible public transit would help us build highly desirable and dense housing around transit hubs, while also decreasing our reliance on automobiles. More transportation options also reduces the need for expensive surface parking, which takes up space that we could be filling with more neighbors, and which also increases the cost for people who already live here. I would also be remiss not to mention that despite the frequent humidity, I much prefer the exercise and community of walking, biking, or riding to my regular car commute. I think our county would greatly benefit from greater freedom in transportation options and in a transportation infrastructure that better sustains our environment for future generations of Central Floridians. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michael Bustillos.
Welcome.
Hello. Do I need to push a button?
Nope, you're good.
All right. Hello.
Hey.
Thank you for having me. My name is Mike Bustillos, 14103 Mid-Suite Lane, Winter Garden, Florida. I am here also with Orlando YIMBY. That's Yes in My Backyard. And we're a group that advocates for abundant and affordable housing. We have a housing crisis in Orlando. Rent is too expensive. Purchasing a house is too expensive. There just isn't enough housing available. And in my work with YIMBY, there's a conversation that I have a lot with people when they ask what I would like to change to help with the housing crisis, and it almost invariably ends with transportation. It starts, we need more housing, we need denser housing. And if you, like I know a lot of you have, spent any time with developers, you're probably aware that there's a very serious upper cap on how dense housing can be, and that is parking. Parking minimum requirements add huge costs to develop, and they kneecap the county's housing capacity. YIMBY's book club, which I'm on, is actually reading Henry Graber's Paved Paradise right now. Highly recommend. Excellent book. So the question then is, how do we fix this? Well, you eliminate parking minimum requirements, or at least reduce them, right? This allows housing to be denser, allows more potential, more affordable housing in denser areas. And the very next question to that is then, but what about the cars? Won't someone think of the cars? Here's the thing. Not everyone can drive. Not everyone can afford to drive. And those people should still have a place in our communities. I would love to not need to drive. I live in a very small, almost walkable area, and the days when I can walk around and not take my car are incredible. I would love to walk down a bustling boulevard full of small businesses or bike to work, but currently I have to take a car. I had to take a car here. I have to take a car everywhere. And in order to have a walkable city, we can't require every resident to drive a car. To have the kind of communal, thriving city that we want, we need public transit options. Trains, buses, rails, we need it all. I want to see Orange County be a transit leader in America. I want to be known across the nation for our great transit and not be known as the least walkable city in America. I encourage the group to pass the transportation tax, to use that money to invest in Orlando's public transit. Bonus comment, I absolutely love the public bank. I think banks should be serving the community and not just the shareholders. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last speaker is Shyam Sharma.
Welcome.
Good evening. Hello. My name is Shyam K. Sharma. My address is 3104 Vishal Drive, Orlando, Florida, which serves unincorporated Orange County, the proud neighborhoods of Alafaya, Union Park, and UCF area. I live in an area that's exploding with growth. It's home to the largest public university in undergraduate enrollment, and we are seeing a lot of stressors in growth when it comes to, of course, housing, and it comes to transportation. And housing, UCF could not even accommodate almost 7,500 freshmen coming in. That is concerning, so concerning. Maybe the university doesn't need to build more housing, but there should be ways to densify that stretch of Alafaya and University Boulevard, as we're seeing it happen, but there's limitations. And the limitations are the parking requirements and the way that we can build with the small shops that are there that can be infilled to be turned into higher, denser walking environments. I grew up living in that neighborhood. I ride the Lynx transit system, and I can speak that it needs the half-cent tax passed. The buses are full, the times are delayed, and the city cannot move forward if we cannot get one thing right, which is transportation. Mobility is action. How are we going to move forward if our residents cannot work, cannot create a life out of themselves, learn our neighbors, learn what our needs are? If we're isolated in our single-family houses and further isolated by cars, if I were to add, we're never going to come together to solve this transportation issue. I really implore you to pass this half-cent tax. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was our last speaker, Chair.
Thank you. We appreciate all of your comments, and even though there were no questions, you can rest assured that board members were taking meticulous notes and extremely concerned about your individual comments. So thank you all very much. We are going to take a break. The break would be after we vote on our consent agenda item, which is our minutes from October the 16th. But I just want to make one comment for those of you that mentioned transportation, and there were quite a few of you. I just want you to rest assured that this board is currently, I've currently asked staff and the board to work with me to develop a policy agenda item that we can bring to the charter review. Remember, our board, the Charter Review Board, established policy for the county, not administrative regulations or administrative rules. So we can't tell the county how to do things from day to day, but we can develop policy that will actually go on the ballot, and then once the voters approve it on the ballot, then the county has to come in and develop administrative rules and regulations to execute those items. Now, we may be able to go a step further than that on transportation if we can develop some policy and some action items that go along with that. And I know that we have one item that's been proposed already, and I've instructed legal staff to start working on that. And I know that Member Callan has an issue that has an item that he has proposed for the budget that will be on held at our next meeting. It would have been on this meeting, except that we are the first Charter Review Commission to have bylaws, and those bylaws are very liberal in terms of how we get things on the agenda. Even though it allows the chairman great discretion to set the agenda, it allows people other than the chair to bring things onto the agenda, which includes board members, and we've had great success with that. Later today, you will hear 2 or maybe 3 items that have gone through that process, that have met all the requirements, and that will be on our agenda. These are items that came from the public. This is kind of unheard of in county government, where the public gets to have an influence on the agenda. So Member Callan will have something, I think, at our next meeting. And I also have some ideas on that, and so I've asked staff to, and with his agreement, of course, to agenda a meeting between he and I and anyone else that would like to come, so we can kind of start to flush out what a policy issue would be for the county on transportation, and then we'll bring that to the board for a full discussion, and hopefully many of you will come back. But our objective is to craft a policy item that we can add into the charter. Did that encapsulate all of our thoughts so far? Okay, thank you. We're going to move to our consent item, and I need a motion to accept the minutes of October 16th, 2023. Been moved by Commissioner Grimmer. He's doing that because each time I pronounce his name a different way every meeting. So
I'm so proud of you, Chairman. So proud.
So we have fun up here too. We love this board. Is there a second? And seconded by Member Staccato. Now, he has the toughest name. That's the one I should mess up. Yes. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there a question? Seeing no questions, all in favor of approving the minutes as we have it, signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed by nay? Seeing none, the minutes of October 16th of 2023 is approved. Thank you. We'll have a brief break, 10 minutes, and then we'll be back promptly. Thank you.
answer your initial question. It was me. Good looking at you.
On the right.
Hello? Oh. If we could please bring the room to order.
The rest of them like. Not yet. I've learned a valuable lesson. Never eat anything chewy before the meeting starts. We're going to start with, okay, you guys countdown. We're going to now go to our general counsel updates, and we're going to go. He's going to go a little bit backwards and make the comments that I missed earlier, discussing this December meeting and the outline of a proposed process for committees bringing their items to committee for a vote, getting them back to our board for discussion and public hearings. And then he's going to talk about what those reports should look like, what will be the minimum requirement for a report to come back to me and to the board for discussion. We'll turn it over to our general counsel.
Chairman, thank you. Members, good evening. As the chairman mentioned, I have a procedural item to discuss with you. I'm going to be discussing a procedural item and then also giving you a very brief briefing on a substantive item relating to transportation. First, the procedural item. As the chairman indicated, staff is currently working on kind of a form and guidelines plan for the commission to bring all the various efforts you have currently in committee in for landing over the next many months as we approach your final deadlines in June. First off, in the draft that we're putting together, it's, as the chairman indicated, going to have lay out the essential elements of what we're going to be having in the final reports out of the committees. That's as much guidance for staff as it is for the committees themselves, because staff takes a strong role historically in putting together those final reports based on the information from the committees, but nevertheless, we want to lay it out for everybody to understand the basics of what we're going to be looking at there. In addition, laid out a number of things relating to meetings. I want to hit a couple key points that we've zeroed in on thus far. First off, in consultation with the chairman has indicated a desire to cancel the December meeting, to not have a December meeting. Nevertheless, it's anticipated that committee meetings would be able to continue to go on, of course, during December, subject to scheduling folks and so on. December, of course, is a difficult time to get people out and otherwise schedule, but the plan is to have committee meetings during that time. In addition, two other key dates that are contemplated. One, I'll start with the very far out one. Keep in mind that the charter provides that the final report of the Charter Review Commission, which is the instrument that transmits to everyone involved, including the supervisor of elections, the questions that are going on the ballot. The final due date of that is this year or next year, June 14th, 2024, the last day for qualifying for county office. It is staff's recommendation, consistent with the practice of the last many charter review commissions, that everyone do our best to not run up to that deadline. There's no there's no benefit or reason to run up to the very last minutes or days. I will tell you from previous cycles, as you are trying to do important work right in those last days in the beginning or middle of June, that is exactly the times people want to be going on vacations, et cetera, and that becomes problematic. So we're working on the plan to back it out to be able to have breathing room there. That also gives opportunity to deal with unanticipated issues that come up. The other key date or deadline that I would put in the Commission's head now is the contemplation of a final meeting at which new evaluation topics would be accepted and considered. This has been done in the at least the very last very many charter review commissions. There's a very important practical reason why, and that is for items to be able to be fully and sufficiently vetted, need to be able to have that time, that lead-up time from the cutoff time through the final report deadline to be able to work through those items. What is being looked at to provide in the document to the Commission is to have the final meeting which to consider new evaluation topics be February 19th, with an agenda deadline for that of February 7th. And so that's the plan we're zeroing in on right now. And the suggestion I would have, again, from prior practice would be as this gets finalized and formalized, we would very much publicize that for the public. And keep in mind that would be a deadline for members of the CRC as well. So if you have a new subject matter internally or members of the public, that is the date, both the agenda deadline and that meeting, that I would suggest you keep in mind. So, Chairman, that's my overview. Actually, there's one more essential element that we're working out the details on here. We are contemplating in January and February having 2 meetings those months, and we're working on the dates, and staff will be checking on availability on the dates that staff has been able to clear for the commission chambers.
Yes, and I would just add just a couple of things. One, by statutes, we are required to have 2 public hearings on any item before we can have a vote. So once items come out of your committees, then we have to schedule 2 votes just on those items. Now, our agenda can handle more than 1 item, so we may have multiple items on a single date. And I've asked staff to get me legal standings and to find out if we get something that runs up against those dates, if we can have 2 public hearings on the same date, just post them at different times. So I don't know if we can do that, but that is the fallback in case we have to. The meetings in January is to kind of speed us up just a little bit and get us to focus really sharply on what items we're going to bring to the public. And just as a point of information, and I say this at each meeting, nearly every meeting, this board doesn't pass any legislation or doesn't make any charter review revisions. Our committees and our committee chairs make no changes, no charter review committee changes. What the committees do is hold deliberation with the public and with their membership to craft items that they believe pass muster and should be heard by the full board. Once they take a vote in their committee on items that they believe should be heard by the full board, then they bring them back to the full CRC, the 15 members, and then we will vote. And if we vote on an item to go forward and it passed with the majority of the vote, then we will schedule 2 public hearings on those items. And so that is one of the driving reasons that I'm trying to get multiple meetings in January and February so that we can start to flush out those dates. And if the members have any concerns about those meetings, if they talk with staff and try to work that out, but it just seems to be the most appropriate way to go. And now would be a good time to make comments on that if anyone is opposed. I'm going to close this out now and say there's no one opposed. I see does that pretty much cover?
That's on the procedural item, yes.
Now, one other thing. I plan to get this outlined to you all within the next week to 10 days. So we'll miss the, I want to cancel this December meeting for the holiday season for people. But I intend to give you an outline of what we propose for closing this out within the next 5 to 10 days, and you should get that by email. Anything? They're shaking their heads as if we covered everything. All right, next would be Chairman.
I'm so sorry, Chairman, I had one other item.
Go ahead.
To address real quick under my General Counsel's report. Members, as you recall, at a couple meetings ago, there was some discussion about transportation, and in particular, transportation matters addressed within other charter counties, particularly in other county charters, and had the opportunity to go through and take a look at that. I think the timing actually works out well. You have one transportation item on for consideration or discussion tonight, and I understand at least 2 of them perhaps coming at what will be your next meeting. So you'll be hearing a fair bit about transportation over the next many months. My overview is brief because most county charters do not have anything addressing transportation in any way or form. That is not to say that transportation in any way is completely out of bounds by any stretch. It just happens to be there's not much there. You do find in a number of charters, for example, I lost my list. For example, Palm Beach County, Pinellas County, and Columbia County, actually, they all address transportation issues. Those are primarily directed to reserving power to the county, particularly about maintaining control over county roads, which is already handled by state statute, but also reserving the power to have certain land use controls and impose impact fees for transportation within municipalities related to development going on within municipalities and so on. So that's about as much as you get on transportation among those issues, and it doesn't very much get into the weeds. There is one additional interesting example, however, that was for a short time in the Hillsborough County Charter, and that was the result of a very recent charter initiative petition process that was brought by a citizen group within Hillsborough County, and it proposed a charter county transportation surtax, a matter we're familiar with here in Orange County. It proposed a transportation surtax by initiative petition. And I will tell you, one of the interesting things about the charter county transportation surtax within the relevant statute is it does say it can be imposed by the charter. So it is subject to charter amendment generally. And so folks over there in Hillsborough did go through and have an initiative petition process that went on the ballot, and it passed. It eventually went through what's called a bond validation process. The county was going to borrow money against the money they anticipated to get. This is a streamlined way to get a clear and final answer from the courts, actually from the Florida Supreme Court, as to whether or not the way they're going to be getting money and borrowing money is legal. So this got short-circuited all the way up to the Florida Supreme Court. And in that instance there, they issued a very long opinion. This is very recently in 2021. And the Florida Supreme Court did not seem to dispute the idea that the tax could be imposed by charter amendment initiated by initiative petition. However, the fundamental flaw they found was bearing the lead. The Florida Supreme Court threw out this tax, threw out that charter amendment, found it to be unconstitutional. The fundamental flaw the Florida Supreme Court found in that instance was the attempt by that charter amendment to constrain the authority of the county commission to utilize the funds generated for certain transportation uses rather than other transportation uses, trying to control, prioritize, say only these types that we deem, that the sponsors of it deemed worthy and not others they did not. That was, in the opinion of the Florida Supreme Court, inconsistent with and ran afoul of the relevant statute that allowed the imposition of that surtax. So I set this up just to tell you that this is not by any means a prejudgment of what you're going to hear about tonight or anything like this. It is just a heads up to everyone that it is a case that would need to be very finely considered when looking at anything the Charter Review Commission might look at with regard to utilizing a charter transportation surtax. And Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you. And just to piggyback off that, this resulted from a member of the public coming before the committee and asking us to consider something to be placed in the charter for transportation. And we had very light deliberation on the board about that, but I asked the board if they would give me liberty to ask staff to investigate this a little bit further to see what we could possibly do. The conundrum is that what is the policy that the county should have for transportation and solving transportation issues versus what the county should do to address or implement the policy. So as we go forward with transportation, I want you to know we are actually searching for answers. So if some of you that have presentations and you make those presentations and you have something that we can use to craft a policy for the county, I want to tell you we're very much interested in it. It does need to be cautious of the fact of what's the difference between administration and policy. So those are the only comments I have, but we're looking for a solution. We have a presentation. We have. Trying to get back on track. We're going to do committee updates first. And we have 4 committees. I'm going to ask those committees if in addition to their reports, if they will initially give us the items that are part of their committees, because some committees started out in one direction and we've had things added to them. So we'll have a Sustainable Growth Committee by Member Grimmer. And then Governmental Structure Committee, which is Member De La Portella. Initiative Petition, which is Chairman Nguyen. She's out. We may not have that presentation unless staff has it. And then we have Creation of a Public Bank, which is chaired by Member Profit, who is absent, but she's asked her vice chair to make a presentation. So we'll start with the Sustainable Growth Charter and Cleanup Committee.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Chairman.
Just to begin, by way of brief overview of the topics under consideration of the committee. Sustainable growth, that really encompasses 2 elements at this point. One is the proposal to incorporate the Affordable Housing Trust Fund into the county charter, and then also the consideration of whether we should implement rural boundaries in Orange County to stop this urban sprawl that has developed in the county and dominated urban planning. So that's the sustainable growth aspect. And we also have charter cleanup. There's a couple provisions in our current county charter that could use a little tidying. One was the imposition of a citizen review board for the sheriff's office. It was declared unconstitutional by the Florida Supreme Court, but it is still technically in the charter. Another one would be there was consolidation of services with City of Orlando Commission back in 2006. They completed their work, but the provision that created that commission is still in the charter. Nothing wrong with it legally. It's just outdated, but so that could use some tidying up if we wanted to have a vote to remove that from the county charter. So to talk about what's been going on in our meeting, the past couple of meetings since my last report, when I was here last month talking about we've been investigating the rural boundaries. When I was here last month, we were very excited about our new idea of proposing to create a rural boundary commission in 2024. That would be the proposal for 2024. The Rural Boundary Commission would study the idea of rural boundaries and hold public hearings in order to get stakeholder input and public outreach as to where these rural boundaries could be. And then in 2026, the vote on the rural boundaries would actually occur. So we were very excited about that idea. That was proposed to us by Commissioner Lee Constantine of Seminole County, where they have a very successful rural boundary there that's worked great for them. So I brought that to the committee last time. We were very excited about it. Since we last met, we've had 2 meetings. On November 1st, we heard from former Seminole County Commissioner Randall Morris. He was instrumental in working behind the scenes and in that public outreach process. So how they did it in Seminole County is before it ever came to the ballot for a charter amendment, they spent 2 years working on it, having public meetings and working with the public and stakeholders in order to get support for the rural boundary and getting all that input. So he worked a lot behind the scenes on that, and he offered some really great insights about how complex it was for them and how much it would be more complex for Orange County, considering our size and the complexities within the county. So that's what that means. I felt even better that we were on the right track with creating this Rural Boundary Commission in 2024. But then came a meeting yesterday. November 8th. And I have to give kudos to my fellow community member, Tom Cowan, who lobbed a bomb in the middle of the meeting and then proceeded to leave 15 minutes later after dropping the bomb. But what he brought up to us was why we were not considering creating the rural boundary based on the existing urban service area that is already in the comprehensive plan, and is also being considered in the comprehensive plan update that is Vision 2050. We heard about that earlier tonight. And that was our initial consideration as a committee, whether we should have just cleanly adopt those lines. But we had some concerns about whether those lines adequately reflected like the status on the ground in Orange County, because there was in Orange County, there's a whole lot of urban style development, such as in rural settlements and in Horizons West, that occurs outside the urban service area as it currently exists. But as we talked about that issue further yesterday, I started thinking about what would be the purpose of this Rural Boundary Commission. And why I wasn't so in favor of it was because it would allow us the opportunity to get input from experts, do outreach with stakeholders, and do that public engagement. But then I realized that's what Vision 2050 is. The Orange County Planning Department, the Orange County government has spent 6 years developing Vision 2050. They did that stakeholder outreach. They did that public input. They worked with experts. And it hasn't been adopted, as we heard earlier from Commissioner Uribe, and we'll see what happens there. But that process has kind of already occurred. And we're looking at some of the maps associated with the Vision 2050 about where the urban service area line would be, and where the transportation planning would go, and things like that. And actually, my fellow member, Eugene Staccardo, mentioned that, a lot of work went into these maps. And I don't think that's the point he was trying to make, but you're right, Eugene. A lot of work did go in these maps from people who know this and really worked on it really hard. So that got me thinking. One of the public's issues sometimes with government, and mine as well as an advocate, is frustration with the bureaucracy and repeated studies on the same issues over and over without any actual action. So I thought, and what we came to, I think, agree on as a committee was there, if we did a rural boundary commission to study the issues that were just studied in Vision 2050, we would be playing into that bureaucracy and adding another level of studies onto something that was just studied for years. And also, we wouldn't have any rural boundaries possibly until 2026. And in that meantime, we could continue to see more urban style development outside the urban service area, which is really concerning for us. And we also, so our idea currently is moving forward potentially with adopting the urban service area line as a potential rural boundary. And there was some public support for that in the room. We've been lucky as a committee to have great public turnout, including members of the public who are really experts in this area, such as Kelly Samrad in East Orange County and Lori Forrester in West Orange County, who've been working on these issues for years. And their level of expertise and dedication I really take into account when considering what we should do as a committee. And they were both in support of this idea of just adopting the urban service map. So I really have to thank them for their participation in the process. So we're back to considering using the urban service area as a rural boundary line. Now, a couple other things associated with that rural boundary we're considering, whether there should be a heightened vote threshold to change the rural service line. We are still considering that. A proposal was brought to us by our council for an 80% of the county commission vote to change the rural service line. So we're still considering that in addition to the the urban service line, and also the issue if land is annexed from Orange County into the municipalities in order to take advantage of more favorable development terms, the Orange County Charter and development laws would still apply. So those issues are still on the table for us, but a big change for us was going back to considering whether we should just adopt the urban service line as a rural boundary. And I have to thank Tom for really reinforcing that and challenging us on that issue and making us give it a second thought. So that's my report.
Thank you, Chairman Grimer. Our next report will be from Mr. Member Della Patella, Governmental Structure.
Chair. That's a tough act to follow, Mr. Grimmer.
There you go.
Our committee Government structure, we're dealing with not, the issues are not as exciting as Member Grimmer's. We're dealing with expansion of the county commission. We're dealing with term limits, frequency of meetings of charter review, separation of powers, and we're looking at the office of the county attorney, whether the county attorney should report to the board or to the mayor only. So on October 18th, we had former Mayor Linda Chapin. Linda Chapin served as the first elected mayor in Orange County. She served. She originally served as a county commissioner from 1986 to 1990, and then she became the first county-wide elected mayor. Was elected in 1990 and reelected in 1994. She served 8 years. I believe she served with Chair Hardage when he served on the commission.
Actually, I followed her and came on with Chairman Martinez and Chairman Crowdy.
Okay.
But I knew her quite well.
Right. So we talked about some of the early decisions that were made. We also had testimony from Tom Wilkes. Tom Wilkes was the county attorney under Mayor Chapin. Was county attorney for about 12 years. Served actually with 3 mayors, but he was also the chair of the original charter review study that was done in 1986. That study was done, and one of the as part of the history, we learned one of the reasons for the charter. There's a few reasons. First of all, the county was becoming more urbanized. It was growing. They wanted to create a strong mayor position. They needed to. They had countywide elected commissioners. So they had 5 members of the commission at the time. All 5 were elected countywide. And Alzo Reddick, who was an African American state representative, served at that time, approached the county and saying, we've got an African American community that's not being served on the commission. So the commission, the Charter Review Commission, also looked at expanding the commission to 1 district and added single-member districts to allow all communities to be served. And that occurred in 1988. But one of the key takeaways of what happened in '86, the original charter study and the charter that was approved by the voters in 1986 had the county attorney reporting to the board. And in 1988, there was another charter amendment, and that sort of restructured government, but there was no reference to the county attorney. Yet, after that, the county attorney was moved from reporting to the board to under a category called legal services that only reports to the mayor. So and we've done a lot of research on this. Thank you to Attorney Vos and our staff. Attorney Vos has found that Orange County is the only county in the state of Florida, of the large counties, maybe all of them, where the attorney does not report to the full board, it only reports to the mayor. So we're unique in that regard. But that's something we're looking at. On November 1st, we heard from former county mayor Teresa Jacobs. Mayor Jacobs served first as the county commission. She represented District 1. She was elected in the year 2000. Served 8 years as a commissioner, and then in 2010 she was elected as Orange County's 4th mayor, and she served as mayor until 2018. And then when she was term limited, she ran for the Orange County School Board. She serves as the current Orange County School Board chair. So Mayor Jacobs has a lot of experience. She's the only resident in Orange County, only citizen in our county that has served both full term on the county commission and a full term as Orange County mayor. So she brings a lot of wealth. The testimony that she provided was, outstanding. We really learned a lot. She gave us both perspective. First, from her perspective as a county commissioner, and then as a county mayor. She was on the legislative side, and sometimes she spoke her mind. She challenged the mayor. She worked very closely with the charter commission. She was involved in 4 charter commissions in her career. She's somebody that was very outspoken. And then as mayor, she also had to deal sometimes with commissioners that did not agree with her and all that, and the balance. How do you balance being on the executive side and the legislative side? So that was very helpful. We had a meeting yesterday, even though it's not part, I'm just going to go over. We really didn't have any public comment. We just had 2 hours of very good discussion. I really want to applaud my committee members, Member Weinsberg, Member Callen, Member O'Neill, Member Staccardo, Member Riley, who's not here today, Member Arias, and Member Wynn. We've had some very good discussion. We got broad and diverse ideas, but we're having very good discussion. So yesterday we spent a couple of hours talking about some of these scenarios, what would work if we move, if this happens and all that. So our next meeting will be on November 29th at 2 o'clock at the County Administration Building, and we're going to have current Mayor Jerry Demings come and speak to us. So our committee is really, I think this is the first time that a charter committee really goes deep into some of the original reasons why the charter was created, was really form a government structure. So we're really, this is, we're having the third mayor come to speak to us, and we're really learning about some of the past, and so we're going to learn about some of the present and some of the decisions really that take place and how government works here. So I really thank all the audience for their comments, and we'll be coming up with some recommendations soon. And we did vote on the frequency of the charter commissions yesterday and unanimously voted to continue the charter commissions every 4 years. We think it's important given the county's growth and changes and all that, and things that cannot get accomplished in this cycle certainly can get accomplished in the future. So that's all my comments, Chairman.
Thank you. What's the date of your next meeting?
November 29th at 2 o'clock.
And Mr. Grimmer, what's the date of your next meeting?
Thank you, Jerry. Yeah, I want to clarify that also. We're also on November 29th at 11 a.m. And I also want to compliment Angel on his comprehensive report.
I don't know.
I should bring some gold stars next time.
No, we're going to sing Kumbaya next. How about that? No. Okay, our next item would have been our initiative petition committee. If staff have any comments on that, we can make them. Member Wynn is not here. If not, we'll just save them for next meeting.
Trying to make mine go red. There we go. Chairman, I will not be comprehensive. I'll be very brief. The Initiative Petitions Committee had their last meeting on October 30th? Yes. To summarize, they have, over the last many meetings, comprehensively gone through Section 601, 602, 603 of the Charter, all relating to initiative petitions for charter amendments and ordinances by initiative. They've done substantial revisions that have been put together in draft markup that they are working on now. They're at the point now where they're finishing up the last bits of 602 and 603. 603 is short. So the sense of the committee at that meeting was they could start moving to recommendations that could come back to the Charter Review Commission in the near future.
Thank you. And just to add on to that, this is one of the key items that I brought to the board. The previous charter, with all good intentions, laid out a public initiative process that was really so complicated that it was very difficult to follow. So I asked staff if they would set up a committee to review that, to see if we could make it more public friendly. And I know that right now they've nearly rewritten the entire section.
Been a lot of rewriting, yes, sir.
So it may have gone further than I expected, but I will find out the same time the public finds out. But we're really excited about that. The public should have a way to have input into their government anytime they choose, if they can follow the requirements that the board set. Next, we have the creation of a public bank. The chairman of that is Member Profit. She called and said she was out. She asked her vice chair, Member Jackson, if she would make a presentation. Member Jackson?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the creation of the public bank, which seems to be a pretty popular topic. Unfortunately for us, there's no history with a public bank, so we've really had to dig deep and lean on counsel for a lot of advice as to even if this is something that the state will allow. We've had 4 meetings. The first 3 meetings were all mainly the cons for a public bank and the concerns. We get a lot of input from the community, which we really appreciate. We had a presentation from Sean Pollard, who is Orange County Treasurer Manager, and he gave us a very detailed overview over currently how the county uses the funds, what the state and county requires as far as how funds need to be housed versus, in the banking and the requirements. So that was very informative. Our last meeting was on October 30th, and we had guest speaker Attorney Earl Stalin, who is chairman of the Rocky Mountain Public Banking Institute, and he gave us a presentation via Zoom, which were his ideas of all the pros for a public bank. Unfortunately, we ran out of time, so he has agreed to come to our next meeting. And we had not, as far as I know, picked a date yet for the next meeting, but he has agreed to come back and answer more questions. And so we, really encourage everyone to come, whatever side of the aisle you are on this. We appreciate everyone's input as we are trying to learn this process and see, what's the best way to handle this and bring it to the board if it gets to that phase. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Jackson. And I just want to add on that, and this is my first time chairing the board, but I've been in government for quite a long time. I've been doing public service since the late 70s, so I'm pretty old, and I've been seeing this a lot. We've only had one and possibly two items come before this committee that was really new. Everything else has been a modification of something that we already have. So I would just encourage those on either side of this issue to be flexible and not be afraid of something that's new. It may go up, it may go down, we have no idea, but we should not be afraid to look at new concepts. My educational background is in psychology, and there's an old saying, you can't get something new if you continue to do what's old. So we're looking at something new, and we'll see how it goes. The other item that may be new is trying to find a way to craft a policy for transportation. So those are the only two new things that have come up. Everything else has been fixing existing issues within the charter or working around the fringes. So I say that to the board. So be encouraged, board, that we're going to give this the same deliberation and attention that we give everything else. And then at the end of the day, the committee will bring reports back to us, and then we'll do it the same way. We'll take a vote and move forward. On transportation, it'll be the same way. So I just want to say it again, never be afraid of something new. And I was mentioning to Member Callan, he's going to bring a transportation issue up. And I'll make a comment on that when we get to that issue. But basically, the world of transportation has changed while we were sitting in our seats. So what we did even yesterday doesn't work in transportation anymore. So we got to think bigger. We got to think differently. We got to think what the county will look like in 4 years. So I don't know if any more comments from the chairs, any comments from the board about their reports. All right, then thank you very much. I want to thank all of our chairs. They're doing an amazing job. We have 1, 2, 3 items that have met the requirements to make presentations before the committee. We're going to ask them to now come forward. The first one would be the topic of a 1 cent transportation sales surcharge to fund sustainable transportation. How much time have we allotted for each presentation? I know there's a PowerPoint.
10 minutes, Chairman.
Half cent. Thank you very much. That's a big difference. There's a big difference. It'll be a big difference. Now, we've allotted 10 minutes, just as a point of information. Is that enough time for you to make your presentation? Thank you very much. You now have the floor. Please identify yourself, who you're with, who you represent, and why you're here.
Great. My name is Maven Rogers. I'm an Orange County resident. I am here representing myself, and this is...
Hi, my name is Ann, or Annie Lott. I am representing Central Floridians for Public Transit, a transit-oriented group, and I am also an Orange County resident.
Great. How do we flip this? Okay, if you could change the slide. All right.
Okay, so I'm just going to propose a few ideas about sustainable transportation. Better public transit and better sustainable transportation would allow our generation and future generations to thrive, as opposed to depending on a mode of transportation that may not serve us as well. One of the main reasons investment in public transit would improve the livelihood of future generations and our current generation is that car-centric infrastructure in particular takes up more space than infrastructure for public transit, and that threatens our environment. Roughly 1.6 million acres of land were taken over by urbanization each year in the United States, and 40% of that land goes to car-centric infrastructure. And when we think of that, we could think of what could that 40% of that urbanized land do if we allocated it to better uses? What if we could use it for housing? What if we could use it for woodland preservation? And that actually kind of aligns with the idea that, or it relates to the idea of the split oak forest controversy over the roads that go through that forest, and that relates back to my point. So sustainable transportation would reduce air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. In 2021, the economic sector producing the most greenhouse gas emissions was transportation in the U.S., producing 29% of emissions. Personal vehicles produced 58% of the transportation emissions in 2021 in the United States. Choosing to take public transit and other sustainable transportation modes would reduce these emissions, and that would be possible if we made these modes more viable. Lynx, for example, already has electric buses running in the downtown area of Orlando. I also want to touch on how sustainable transportation would promote equity. In a car-dependent city that isn't necessarily as sustainable, the price is a massive barrier for low-income residents to getting a job and sustaining a livelihood, the price of a car, that is. In 2023, the average price of a car was $48,000. If you don't have that money up front, you can't get a job, essentially. Based on a report by the Orlando Economic Partnership, there are 527,000 Orlando jobs within 30 minutes of driving, but only 5,600 jobs accessible by transit in the same time. And also, based on that statistic and my own experience, wait times for public transit are very high in Orlando. And for me, getting to work would take less than an hour in a car, but 3.5 hours via public transit. And these problems could be solved with sustainable transportation and a 50-cent tax for sustainable transportation.
Great job, Annie. And I think one thing that we did forget is we really wanted to thank you all for allowing us for this opportunity today. I really look at every single one of you as community leaders, and I know myself and Annie really find this as an honor to be able to speak on this topic and that you all are picking it up. If you can go ahead and change the slide. One thing I want to ask you all today is, how did you guys get here? Do you remember how you got here? Do you remember how long it took you? Do you remember the left-hand turn that you took in to go to a high school, and how 16-year-old children have to take that left-hand turn? 17-year-old children have to take that left-hand turn? We have accepted the status quo, just like home. Are you a doctor, Dr. Hartage? Dr. Hartage, yeah.
No, but I'll accept the title.
Okay, right. You sound like a doctor. But just like you were saying, is, oftentimes we have accepted the present and the past for our future, but we don't have to accept it now. And so based on your comments, from the lawyer's comments today, we did offer a sustainable transportation definition. We will need to reanalyze that based on the comments, but what we're offering is going to be defined as a focus of the single occupancy vehicle of carless movement of people and goods in a way that minimizes traffic congestion, promotes social and environmental impacts, promotes good social and environmental impacts while providing new opportunities for economic prosperity. Go ahead and change. So I just want to really talk about the commute. We are seeing that people are dying. In 2021, Metro Plan Orlando said that there was 89 pedestrian deaths. of mostly working age people and mostly at night. That seems really unfair for a community. Some of the people in this room might have had someone that they know have died. And not only that, we're actually killing people on the roads. Road rage has gotten so bad that even just, I think it was a week and a half ago, an Altamont man was found on the side of I-4 based on a road rage incident. And not only does that hurt one family, it hurts multiple families involved. And you can go ahead and change the slide. And it's also become profitable. When I looked up road rage incidences online, a lawyer showed up that specializes in road rage incidences, which shows you how much this is coming up and what we are looking like. And you can go ahead and and I wanted to quickly talk about the commuting paradox. So basically, this is the idea that really, based on our commute times, as you see that driving car, the left-hand side is your quality of life. So the longer your commute time goes, the more decreased your quality of life goes. That's why you see a lot of younger generations up here. They're talking, they want walkable cities, they want a bike, because they really don't want to get in a car. It's really stressful to get in your car. When you think about going home tonight, do you think about getting in your car to go home, or do you think about going home? Right? So we can have different solutions for this, but we do need funding opportunities. If you can go ahead and change that slide. So one thing I wanted to talk about, and this just came up, it was actually a Facebook sponsored post that was actually directed towards me. And this was a published article by Orlando Weekly, the 18 worst decisions that you can make in Orlando. And you can go ahead and change the slide. One of them, leaving yourself less than half an hour to find a parking spot at UCF. I can account for that because I am a UCF student. Or I was, and then go ahead, sorry. Finding an empty lot downtown. There's so many, we are so car dependent that there's not even any place to park. You can go ahead and change. Taking I-4 on rush hour, that explains itself. You can go ahead and change. And taking links. Well, first I thought it said taking links. It actually didn't say taking links. It said relying on links, which is two different things. And so if you have to take links, don't rely on it. That's what the message that we're sending visitors, that's the message that we're sending residents, is that our community, out of the 18, there's 4 transport, well, there was actually 5, but I omitted 1. But there was 4 to 5 transportation off of 18 on the worst decisions you can make in Orlando. This is what tourism sees. This is what our visitors sees. This is what our residents sees. This is what our students that are searching for a different university, right? If I'm like shopping universities, students don't want to drive. The FTA actually did a study. They found that in 2021, the number of 18-year-olds that have a driver's license is 60%. That's down from 80% in that. So that's a big deal. If you want to go ahead and change.
Just we'll allow an extra 2 minutes so you don't have to rush yourself.
Oh, okay. Great, because I'm rushing.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So our proposal is a half a penny sales tax for it to be implemented for 10 years, so it could give it a good enough time to see if it's working. Projects, well, we would hope to be distributed into a sustainable transportation fund that would, if it mimicked anything like the previous tax, it would be around roughly $300 million a year. And of course, that would go to better biking infrastructure, buses, trains. This would also be able to pay for operations, because one thing, I've worked for multiple municipalities and here locally, and one thing Lynx would always tell me is like, yeah, we can write grants for buses, but we can't write a grant for operations. So we can't get buses until we can actually fund the people to drive the buses. So this also provides an opportunity for the county, as much money that we heard today, a resident advocating for IRA, and the money that's coming down with federal government, well, guess what? It's 75-25. And if you don't have the 25%, you don't have the funding. In the next slide, please. So the funding gap in Netflix. So, it's roughly at $300 million, and it's been noted that we have about a $5.4 billion gap, which is absolutely huge. So, I know this isn't going to solve it by any means, but when we kind of looked at the numbers, it would be roughly around $1,650 a month. And I just want to make like a real quick comment on this, because I know with my work on the transportation stuff last year, it really came up, equity, and equity is a really big thing in the community and our community, and I love that. And what I want to say is I'm actually a resident that lived in poverty, and driving a car is very expensive, and a lot of low-income residents still drive a car. Well, I could only afford like a $1,000 car, and those $1,000 cars break down a lot, and gas prices are very volatile. And I was in a car accident that wasn't my fault, and I lost my vehicle, and I was making a little more above minimum wage working in childcare, and my 30-minute commute turned into an hour and a half. I'd have to wake up at 5 a.m. to catch the bus. I wouldn't get to work till 8:30. Sometimes I was late, and then if I was late, I was in trouble, and it was out of my control. And then the bus where I was at didn't come till 6:30. So even though I got off around 5, I'd have to wait, and I wouldn't get home till around 8, and then I would just repeat the cycle. I was really unhappy. It was a very, very unhappy point in my life. That was about 6 months of that, and I can't imagine residents waking up and doing that every single day. And I am not saying that everyone can afford $16.50, but I would have paid $16.50 to get to work faster. I would have done that. A Netflix subscription, depending on what you got, it depends on how much you like TV, but it can go up to $20. This is for our happiness, this is for our neighborhoods, this is for our community. We're only going to be paying $16.50. And then the next slide, please. So, you know, I'm not going to go through this, obviously, I never plan to, but I just wanted to show you all the different things that we can do with this money, and we can do so much more. Next slide, please. And then this is also the benefits, and the benefits could be so much more. And, you know, we heard a lot from young people today, and what I would want to say is, you know, the young people, we always try to have a voice, and I feel like we're finally having our voice heard today. And, you know, my last final comments would be that I worked for government. I've also been a strong, you know, community advocate. And the reason why I picked this project up, because I'm very busy, I have multiple projects, is because I've never seen something that could make such an impact overnight. As many projects as I look for, as many policies as I look for, as many grants as I look for, there's nothing out there that could do this type of work. And I have been vehemently and adamantly, I feel so passionate about it. I think that this would really change the region. And I think that there's really a few times in our lives that we get the opportunities to do something really great and make history. And this is one of them. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great presentation. Any questions? Member Callan. Member O'Neill first, and then Member Callan.
Could we have the speakers back up?
Yeah.
It's Maven and Annie, is
Yep.
it? Okay. We're constrained, if this were to be referred to a committee, the committee is constrained to the boundaries of your proposal. What I heard throughout is that public transportation is important because it preserves conservation land. You mentioned Split Oak. Would you consider expanding the scope of your proposal to include the use of some of this money for the acquisition of land for public parks and conservation?
So what I would say is this is a proposal for the committee, whoever takes this proposal, if it's voted on to move forward. This is just a proposal, but I think that would be perhaps a good use of money. However, it's something that should be researched.
And I would just say to that is, you know, I think that yes, so $300 million is not that much. And, you know, some of my projects that were quoted at $3 to $4 million are now $9 million within a year or two. And so I think that any way we can, you know, work this out, I think that that's very open, especially if it's conservation in some way. Because parks is also a part of mobility. Biking and walking, we have to give people spaces to go if we want to encourage that. So I would actually argue that mobility is parks, that they're all kind of intertwined there as a community place. And one thing, and you know, just to mention is, you know, when I heard about the issue that's coming up, one thing I did want to say is, if we can't tie the hands of the county, can the county decide where it goes? So can the county come up to this charter review and say, this is what we would want, or can the county do something? And I know that might not be, that might be a lengthy conversation, so I'm not looking for an answer tonight, or if there is an answer. And if there is a time that maybe, and I can do research too, but is there a time where a tax passed where it did from the commission review process, and it did have goals and didn't get challenged, and what did that look like? And so I definitely want to do my own research too, but just food for thought. Maybe looking at those types of examples, and then maybe the tax is sustainable planning and defining that instead of transportation. But unfortunately, I've worked in the field of sustainability for 8 years, and sustainability has always been a moving target. It's always whoever decides what sustainable is, and that is not great. And so that is one of the problems with not defining sustainability.
Thank you, Member Callan.
Okay, is this on?
No.
No.
There you go.
Okay, am I on? No, I don't know.
Well, that's not.
Is that better? Yeah, we'll do that one here. Energy is amazing. I was a city transportation attorney 30 years ago. I dealt with rail, high-speed rail, maglev buses, took over links from Osoto, did the taxis, right-of-way acquisition, anything with transportation dropped on my desk at the city of Orlando. Then went on to work for the Expressway Authority as one of their lawyers. And so I've been around a long time, and some of the players that were there 30 years ago who were really top-notch, world-class talent like Paul Scatellis, Danny Pleasant, Jim Charlier, Rick Bernhardt, they left town because we didn't implement a tax. They said this place is not mature enough, like immature. They're not planting the seeds that we're going to go on with our career somewhere else. And they all left town probably about the mid-90s. And so we've languished the same issues for 30 years now. So, and so what you talk about, I think, needs to be really honed a lot more work to it. You can't tell the government, the county, how to spend money, but you can put a structure in place for oversight, for transparency, to make sure stuff doesn't get put on consent agenda the week before Christmas, that it comes to a full public hearing in March and April with everyone, so you have one glorified food fight over where the money's being spent. That's what I propose, by the way. So what's happened is the last sales tax I got with Commissioner Rebay on it went through the 2,000 pages that was in the sales tax. And the different parts they had was deals with pedestrian safety. You talked about that. There's not enough road to pave the roads in the county. There's no money to pave the roads in the county, but in subdivisions. That was part of their need for the money. The other part was lighting, transit, street cars, and then something to deal with the Sunrail. Actually, a small component was to deal with Sunrail, if you looked at the whole numbers. A terrible presentation by the county to the voters, second time in a row, like in 2003. They said, trust us, here's a black hole, give us the money, trust us. Voters said no. It's been successful in Osceola County and in Seminole County twice, where they list where the money is being spent to the voters before the vote. It's also because they have oversight committees too as well. So Orange County didn't want to take that model, and it got shot down again. I was told that we were discussing language at the time, coming up on the fly, of an oversight audit committee about this, if the sales tax passed. And I was told, I don't know if it's true or not, that when they had an oversight committee, it polled 10 points higher because the citizens felt more comfortable that there was an independent oversight by experienced people, not just a bunch of people who were going to be special interests, but balanced by community interests such as environmental protection, wetland protection, and sustainability, those kinds of issues. And the future, as Chairman Hardage is talking about. So that was part of that, and they didn't want to emphasize that in the ballot. So that's a long wind-up I got here about this. The penny sales tax, we could generate $640 million a year. Average Lynx bus driver makes about $90,000 a year, all in for all the retirement, all that stuff you got to put in there and all that. So let's say $90,000. Lynx can't put more than 100 drivers on a road a year. They can't grow that fast. So that's $9 million. Okay? And so what we were having a debate internally was you couldn't spend this money that fast. It could be inflationary. We have to be very appropriate about the money and spending the money. There's options to do that, things to look at, and all of that. But there is a need, as you say. And the biggest point they didn't emphasize, which we were talking with Commissioner Reba and I was, is what you guys are kind of talking on the edges on, but it's about this. I got 3 kids that are 26 years old. A car does not mean as much to 26-year-old kids today as to old grumpy men like me at age 61. A car was a big deal. What you drove, who you were. The young generation doesn't want cars. So if Orlando wants to be a city that it wants to be in the future, Orlando should have a transit policy to attract and retain our kids in a place they can live without a car. That was never explained that way for the ballot. Right. And it should have been explained by mothers, not grumpy old men, tired old men who were doing most of the presentation at the county.
Hey, slow down a little bit there on me.
And so there's some stuff, but I'm getting at is that you probably could do a lot and push the needle. Phenomenal doing a 10-year quarter-cent tax and have huge results just on transit alone and pedestrian safety. $160 million a year for 10 years. That would be something to consider. And then follow along this next week or next month or so, or 2 months, about a Transportation Expenditure Advisory Committee putting in the charter requiring the county, any expenditure of county funds goes to this committee every year for a recommendation to the board, but is publicly vetted in a public forum. See, what your idea is good. Going to quarter cent, you could really do all for transit you're talking about, I think. So just an idea, suggestion. It's a good idea. I would try to broaden your net a little bit right now. Call it a sales tax proposal. I think, I know when Disney did Celebration, they bought that big piece of land by Reedy Creek and put a conservation easement over in exchange for taking out wetlands by downtown Celebration. Big exchange. And then Poinciana has issues of traffic on the road down there, and they had to build that toll road right through the middle of it. Okay, I'm wrapping up here. It's a long wind-up, I know. But what Commissioner was talking about down there about Split Oak, sometimes you have to balance those issues, and they're not fun issues to balance. But I think it is transportation related to as well. So if you broaden your scope, possibly that would be good here as well. Thank you for the effort tonight.
Thank you, Member Aris. And then we'll have Member Weinsberg, and then Member Aris, and then.
Aris is not here. Tom.
Okay, Council.
I'm sorry.
Member Weinsberg.
Give me one that works. There we go. Hi. I had a company that did governmental public relations for 40 years. I managed 2 sales taxes in Seminole County, the first one and the second one. The way Seminole County did their transportation sales tax was the government did not present it. They got an outside organization from within the county, the Private Business Association of Seminole, to take that issue on as their issue. They formed a PAC, they raised the money, they created the advertising, they did the campaign. They enlisted the school system, so they also enlisted every city. They enlisted a conglomerate of the community to create the sales tax program. Each entity put in their 2 cents what they wanted that money to cover, clearly, line item by line item. I mean, not sustainable transportation. It was these roads, these sidewalks, these sunrail. And so that was the first sales tax. It passed like, what, 57% or something passed. Went for 10 years. They did every item on that list. And so 2 years prior to the 10-year sunset, they started over again with the same organization and the same PAC, the same system. They got the schools more involved. They got more money in the second half because the flavor for transportation got a little soft since they had a bunch of money in the pot to pay for Sunrail that hadn't been spent. So the negatives said, well, you got more money than you need. And they passed the second one, and it's in the middle of that right now. Now, who knows? It's going to sunset in another year or two. Whether they'll be able to pass another one with the same group, I don't know. I won't be handling it. I'm retired. But it all worked out. And the second one passed by 70%. So, but the government presenting, it's what they said. The government is here to help you. Those are the scariest words you've ever heard. People, and today's voting climate, so I'm just giving you my advice that you're on the right track. You need to get a little more specific, but you need some outside groups with large spheres of influence that will use this, that will go out and campaign for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Grimer, and then Member Staccato.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, you're doing so well. It was 2 or 3 times tonight.
Excuse us.
He's got it. He's got it. He lost it.
Okay.
First, I want to thank.
Can I start over?
Sure. Try again. Go ahead.
Next, I can't stop laughing. Next, we'll have Member Grimer.
Was that a joke?
Yes. Member Grimer and then Member Staccato.
Oh, wow. Okay. I just want to thank Ms. Rogers and Ms. Law for coming here and bringing this here tonight. Start off by saying, right off the bat, I am wholeheartedly in support of this proposal. What needs fine-tuning, that's what a committee is for. But I also want to touch upon, we've heard a lot of great public comments from people tonight and throughout our commission meetings, and we've heard some reoccurring issues come up and over again. Number one is traffic. If you hate traffic, which we all do, you should want other options, viable options in the community, because traffic is caused by cars. So even if you have no intention of ever getting on a Lynx bus or a Sunrail train, you should want other people to do it, so they're not in the car, on the roads, clogging up your commute. That's number one. If you're worried about the environment and stormwater, you should support the sales tax, because as we heard in the presentation, the majority of our emissions coming from transportation are from cars. And if you're worried about stormwater, you shouldn't want more money to widen our roads and take up more of our green space. You should want public transportation. If you don't like the idea of a public bank that could potentially be used to fund transportation projects, we should fund the transportation projects ourselves as a community. So even people who have stood up tonight and other nights and said, I don't support a transportation sales tax, when I listen to the other things they do support or they don't support, I think they really should support a transportation sales tax to build a community of the future and build a sustainable community for everyone. That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Member Staccato.
Couple data points from NPR today. They said 2 billion parking spaces are in this country today. That equates to about 13,000. 13,000 square miles. Orange County's 1,000. So that gives you an idea of how big we're dedicating to our space. And a planner from decades ago from the city of Orlando, on a previous debate we had, 60% of our land mass is pavement in the urban area. I was one of those unknown. I didn't like cars when I was. I'm 60, so I actually didn't get my license until almost 20. I rode my bike to UCF and out to Lake Pickett to go crew practice from Winter Park, 100 miles a day for quite a while. So I finally did get a license at some point, but I really wanted to see as a young person, and I still want to see it before I die, a transit system, sort of what Seattle is doing right now. They're building out a complete system. Too slow, in my opinion, but they are building it. So I think we do need to address this. I think it's strictly transportation. I think Green Place, we talked about that on the last CRC, which is a public funding. We do need to bring that, I think, as a commission about permanent funding still, or asking the commission to do that. But that's a separate question than transportation, and because the money can be spent on the things that you spoke about, including a rail system, improving from one rail to multiple rails, because this county has to have a grid system based on a rail system as an arterial backbone. You can't do we saw a map the other day of a transit from Vision 27, which showed the connectors between. It's really evident, UCF downtown, UCF down to the medical. We have known spaces. I have a friend who sat down and actually drew out the links, limo, the orange, the grapefruit. He submitted that idea, and this is a suggestion. They were accepted. His decisions based on those new lines were actually based on a citizen's input because they were better than what they had done. So that's I think we actually should study at least creating a policy as a committee of something, because it's an extremely interesting idea to me. I think it's something that although we might be not able to direct the BCC on money, we might be able to create a structure that we can get the citizens to back, because I didn't back the last time because I asked a simple question to the board about the money and how, can you guarantee me simply that bucket A, B, and C are stable? And they said, oh, sure. And when immediately a commissioner asked about a percentage, and all of a sudden they started moving money. I'm like, there's no faith. So we got to have faith to the citizens, and that's something that we might be able to do with a policy of the structure. Because I think looking at the school board, that's a very interesting thing. They've done twice, but they had projects, and they accomplished them within a certain period, not 30 years, but 10 years, I believe, is the school board. And they got the faith of the citizens after that first time and said, okay, we trust you guys as citizens. Here's another 10 years on this. So I think we citizens need that, and I'm speaking as a citizen, not as a commissioner, that I have to trust that that money's going to be spent correctly, and I need a time frame within my lifetime that I have the rebuttal of a no vote eventually, and they always have that threat level that we have the vote. So I think we do need to study this as a commission, and I would love to see a motion or something developed.
Yes, thank you, Member Staccato. Member O'Neill.
Chair Hartage, are you open to a motion?
I think, can we hear, we have one more person to speak. Rishi? Member Rishi?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I guess I'll just echo what was said. I think that I'm really elated to hear some of the comments about the importance of this, and it seems that there's wide support for that on this board. I do think that one of the failures in the past has been the lack of transparency or lack of clarity exactly where that money is going, and unfortunately that has led to the failure of incredibly important proposals such as putting money towards transportation. So I do think in the wider fight for this, that is going to be really important going forward. As a CRC, I would just wanted to echo also that I would support forming a committee to do that, and I think that's what you're about to do.
Okay, thank you. But I just before. No, not this point. Thank you. Just to make a comment before we decide to make a vote. We had a presentation from our legal staff before we started transportation, and we don't really have a clear policy that we can present to the public for transportation. We just really don't. We're actually searching. We were all excited about your presentation, and from my perspective as chair and trying to provide some direction for the public and for this board, we need to flesh this out more and see what is the policy. The policy can't be we direct the county to expend funds. That's not allowed. The policy could be that we decide we're going to have transportation. I'm just putting that in quotes. So I think that I know that our next couple of meetings are going to focus heavily on transportation. And my preference would be to allow us to hear that presentation and then continue to work with our legal staff to try to decide what policy it is. It's obvious that transportation is a major, major, major problem, and that a lot of people, a lot of public comment has come to this board concerning transportation. But it's important that we get it right. It doesn't do us any good to put something on the ballot and then the voters go out and vote for it, and we spend a lot of time and energy passing it, and then we already know the courts have knocked down something almost identical. So I support what you're doing, and I think this board in general supports that. But we don't really have the policy correct yet, in my opinion. So I would suggest that I don't know how we do this. Could we get them in front of a committee? Someone? What? Yes, sir, yes. I was just wondering what the motion was going to be. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Okay. Chair, I would like to move that we either form a committee or add this subject to another committee to study the possibility of imposing of creating a transportation surtax that also includes the purchase of public parks up to 1 cent total. I've got a grimace from Mr. Grimmer. Perhaps somebody would like to restate the motion, but that is the essence of the motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. Thank you. That was a great effort. Not that we disagree with him, it's just that we're trying to figure out how to do this.
Chair, can I make a motion?
Yes, sir. There's a second motion by Member Reimer.
I'd like to move for the Sustainable Growth and Charter Cleanup Committee to study the issue of a transportation surtax of up to a half cent, 10 years.
Would you accept a friendly amendment to that to ask the committee to search for a transportation policy to create ways to improve mass transit?
I can amend the motion for the Sustainable Growth and Charter Cleanup Committee to consider issues related to transportation.
The creation of a policy.
Creation of policies to address transportation issues in the county.
I would second that. We have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman, for discussion.
Motion and second by the chair, and we open for discussion.
What was the motion again? I'm sorry.
It was a tag team motion. A motion to send to the Sustainable Growth and Charter Cleanup Committee to study the issues of creating a policy to address transportation issues that would include consideration of a transportation surtax.
Okay, I wanted to state something that's, I think it's the obvious. Have you approached the Orange County Commission with this idea? Because I think that they have taxing authority that we do not have, right? We're the charter. In all fairness, Mr. Chairman, I don't see this as a charter issue.
Our attorney said it can be done in the charter. It has been done in Hillsborough County. They tied the hands of the county commission about how the dollars were spent, but that's not why it was thrown out in Hillsborough County. It is valid under the charter to do a transportation surtax.
Ultimately, the goal, right? The objective is not to do the study. We can study, anything we want. Right? The goal is to consider imposing or placing a half cent on the ballot next year. That's the goal, right?
We've broadened the idea to consider that would be something that under consideration by the chair.
Shouldn't the county commission first have an opportunity to discuss this issue?
In 2023, in 2022.
Right, and they put it on the ballot.
So
and the voters.
Maybe
hear me out. Hear me out. There's some logic here to my comments.
One at a time.
Okay, the county commission debated this issue. They put it on the ballot. Okay, it passed the county commission by a vote of 4-3. Commissioner Bonilla voted no. Commissioner Wilson voted no. Commissioner Siplin voted no, and the rest of the commission voted yes. So it got on the ballot, and it failed at the ballot by 66-34. What has changed? Because And by the way, they created a PAC, they raised $1.5 million, they did TV ads, they did Facebook ads, they did mail, they did everything, right? And it failed 66-34. What has changed? We have high inflation, we've got rents, rents are high insurance. What will change in the voters' minds in 2024 that has changed from 2022? I'm just trying to be practical.
Yeah, I think. Sorry,
One
Chair.
second, please, as we go. I did not intend to second a motion that included the sales tax, but I do think we should be deliberating on what the county's policy should be for transportation. So I just wanted to make that correction. That was not my intention to support the 1 cent sales tax portion.
Just to include.
I don't think we should.
I mean, we can start transportation issues. We have all sorts of issues. Just to address the Angel's comments. Member Weinsberg so eloquently pointed that in Seminole County that they had the assistance, and why I was successful, of an outside group assisting. This is being proposed by not the Board of County Commissioners. This is being proposed by citizens.
But why don't they approach the Board of County Commissioners first? Because the Board of County Commissioners does have the ability to put a tax on the ballot and then decide how it's going to be spent. They've got the playbook. Simply, I would say go to the county commission. Listen, I supported the tax. I voted for the taxes. I agree. We're very underfunded with tax. However, I just don't think this is a charter review issue. I think that this is more of a Board of County Commission issue. And I mean, if we can study everything we want. We can study, mating patterns of squirrels, right? But what is the objective?
Point well taken. If we can, Member Callan. Yeah, we have questions have been called, but do you mind if we hear Member Callan? And before question, we can discuss the question.
Okay, I'm still on green light.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. I don't think this should go sustainable growth. Sustainable growth has got a lot of issues that are going to be very complex and very provocative. I think this should be studied by a separate committee, and it should be a general policy, like you say, Mr. Chairman, first, and then come back to the board sometime in January after those 2 meetings and see where we're at. I think right now we're making a lot of suppositions and we're launching into arguments yet, but we really don't know yet where we're at. I would like to see more detail from the general counsel as to what authorities could exist or not exist, but also I think just the idea you talked about having just a general discussion on transportation first,
yes,
and then get into delve into the details.
So we have one other person. I want to ask Mr. Staccato if he would hold off just a second.
Okay.
I think if the motion were to study the development of a policy for transportation, I think that would be more appropriate. I'm not sure if that's acceptable to the maker.
Yeah, I can make that motion.
Is that reluctantly or full-heartedly?
No, I mean, we'll consider.
I am joking
we will
with him.
consider the sales tax as part of. But I would say I'm open to considering all transportation issues and whatever alternatives council comes up with as things we could do. Open to all of that.
Okay, so if I understand it correctly.
And I just mentioned sustainable growth only because it seemed to fit in nicely with our sustainable growth topics, but I'm not against forming a separate committee to consider transportation issues if that's a sticking issue.
Okay, we have a policy of honoring the call for questions, so I'm going to continue that. We have never not honored a call for questions since we've had this meeting. So question has been called. Is there a second for call to question? Second. Motion made by Member Weinsberg and seconded by Member Callens. We'll have discussion on the motion to call for questions. Any discussions? Question?
Which motion are we?
We're only considering right now the motion to call for questions, and then we'll go back and vote on the main motion. Is there a discussion on the motion to call for questions? Seeing no discussions, all in favor of calling for questions, please signify by aye.
Aye.
The motion to call for question carries. Debate is now in. We'll vote on the main motion.
Is there a way? I'm sorry, because I think
I'm sorry,
Angel, but I think he asked me a question, right?
No, I'm sorry. There's no more public comment. We appreciate it. You made a great presentation, so you just want to. Yes, ma'am, please. But your presentation was amazing, so let's just.
We'll get back with you.
Yeah, we appreciate it a lot. It was very well done. Very well done. If the Madam Clerk will help us with the motion. She's laughing.
Which one?
Okay, you're the maker.
Chair Grimer, if you could reiterate
Yes.
the motion that.
I will make a motion to send to committee.
Clarify. You already made the motion.
Yes, I will clarify my motion. Thank you, Chair. Still young at this. I would like to make a motion, clarify my original motion to send to a committee to study the idea of transportation policy.
No, the creation of a
Creation of transportation policy.
Nice, clean motion. And we already doing that. We're deliberating it as a full committee every single meeting. I don't know if you all are seeing the same thing I'm seeing, but every single meeting we're deliberating as a 15-member board about transportation. So we need to either, as James Brown would say, hit it or quit it. So that's where I want to get.
Let's begin late.
What committee?
We have to decide that. Let's do the motion first. We have a motion, and I'll keep the second as long as it's just on policy and we are there. And we'll call for questions on the main motion. Seeing no questions, any discussion? No discussion. All in favor of the main motion signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed signify by nay. Nay. We have one nay, Member Weinsberg. The motion carries. The next consideration is to consider what Member Callen recommended, that it be submitted to a separate committee or to an existing committee. They all know that I am averse to setting up 1,000 committees, but I think this is one that should go to a separate committee because there's so much involved. There's so much involved, and this is one of the issues. One of the issues that we truly do not have the answer. So we're relying on research from our attorneys, from the public, and from the brain power on this board. So is there a motion for the creation of a committee to discuss the motion, the policy? Moved by Member Grimmer. Is there a second? Seconded by Member Staccato.
Call the question.
Question is called. We won't vote on the question. I don't think there's any disagreement. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of setting up a new committee, signify by aye. Aye. Aye, thank you. All opposed? Mo, we have one opposed, Member Weinsberg. Let that be recorded. The chair gets to gets to decide who chairs committees. This is not one I've thought through. The person here that's most vested in transportation is Member Callen. We respect his expertise. He may not be able to chair the committee because of other obligations. But other than that, we need a chair, and
I could do that if my role in the sustainability is end, since I threw that hand grenade the last meeting.
We'll miss you, Tom.
Okay, thank you. Then I will nominate Member Callen as the chair, and we'll need at least 2 members. Anyone like to serve on that committee?
I'll do it. I have plenty of free time.
Yeah.
Number 5.
Member Bagley, you're open for that?
Yep, Chair. I'd like to volunteer as well.
Member Staccato, Member Bagley, or Member O'Neill?
And Member Grimmer, not O'Neill.
Member Grimmer?
Yes.
Member
yes, Chair.
Grimmer would like to be on there.
So it's basically the sustainable growth again, Tom. You can't get rid of us.
Okay.
It's literally the same committee. It's the same 4 members.
And just for the comment from Member Weinsberg, this is not to say we're going to vote yea or nay on any particular project. I don't think we should be voting on administration for the county. I've served as a county commissioner, and the one thing that does not work on the board is when non-elected people tell us how to spend money that we've been elected to manage. So that's a really big issue for the board. Even if we make mistakes, that's still our responsibility. So we don't want to be into setting administrative regulations, but it is our job to decide what policies should be in the charter. At the end of the day, we may decide that this is something that we can do or something we can't do, but we'll figure it out.
Chair Hardage, could we clarify the members of that committee for the record?
Raise your hand if you're on that committee. The chairman.
Gene just walked out.
So member O'Neill, Member Baga, Member Grimer, Member Staccato, and it'll be chaired by Member Callen.
Yes.
Thank you.
And he has not to do this home, but he has a great background in transportation and be ideally suited for that.
And if, in my defense, I can say why I voted no, is I'm 100% behind the tax, and I've supported it many times. I just don't think it's a charter review issue. I think it should be at the commission level.
And I agree also that should be more even a citizens initiative brought to the board for the board to approve or disapprove, or for the voters to put through the initiative committee. Now remember, we are working on an initiative petition. So if the board should deny your request for the tax, you still have the opportunity to get it through the board if we can get our initiative petition changes voted by the public. All right?
Mr. Chairman, if we could have the meeting of the committee after our first January meeting, that may be appropriate. When we talk about transportation as a board and get some direction.
Yes, and you'll work with staff to set up the appointment, and then legal has already started to doing research on that, which you'll make available to you.
And Chairman, I was going to mention that one thing, unless there's a strong objection, I was going to be, because I know I'm going to be asked the question in that committee, taking a look at updating my thoughts and research on the application of the charter transportation surtax statute to charter amendments. The last time I looked at that, I did look at it in 2016. That statute's been amended 14 times since then, with a lot of new moving parts, some of which were involved in that Hillsborough lawsuit. So I'm going to be taking a peek at that just so I can be conversant when we dig deeper.
Okay, thank you very much. We have any other comments for the good of the order?
I will just say, I support the motion because I believe that Member Callan, first of all, his expertise in transportation is very unique to our charter and to Orange County. However, what may come out of it is this transportation committee that he wants to propose that will help have citizen input in some of the transportation decisions. And I hope that it includes municipalities as well, because there's quite a bit of challenges with municipalities in trying to get the county to build roads that benefit, that serve the municipalities and the county. So I would support that type of committee, but I am concerned as Member Weinsberg that we just don't have the ability to set taxes for Orange County. That's really a responsibility of the county commission. Thank you, Chairman.
That is correct. And as I mentioned earlier, I've asked staff to post a meeting between Member Callan and I to discuss a possible policy issue to put the county in a position to take advantage of the new and emerging transportation modalities that are coming out all over the world right now. And not to get too far out ahead of the cart, there are right now, as we speak, no less than 10 companies talking about flying cars. I mean, whether we may never get that in Orlando, but there are no less than 10 companies talking about having that, not in 10 years, but in 3 years and 4 years. They're talking about what's happening in Lake Nona now. There's someone that's making a presentation on various different mobile systems. The world in transportation has changed dramatically. So by the time we get to the next 4 years of renewing this, if we haven't made some changes, we're going to be too far behind the curve. So we have to start now. So that's what my focus is on, what should be the policy to take advantage of the new transportation modalities that are already in play that we can bring to Orange County. And there are several cities that have already started to doing that, and I think we should be positioned to be the leader. We should be the leader in new modalities. I couldn't wait to get a car when I was 16. My son doesn't care about a car. My grandkids don't care about a car. We have guests that come to visit us. They don't even bring a car. They Uber everywhere and Lyft. Lyfts will not be driven by people in 5 years. It won't be happening. So I don't want to get too far out, but we want to position the county with the right policy to take advantage of these things if we can. Okay, having said that, let's kill this issue. We beat that one. Okay. All right, this is the longest. Okay, anyway. Item B is the proposed charter topic that's been brought by Member O'Neill, and he has met the requirement to get an item entered on the agenda. We'll ask Member O'Neill now to make a presentation on amending Section 605, which is the section that relates to nonpartisan elections in Orange County. Member O'Neill. And he'll have the same privilege as any other member to make a 10-minute presentation if he needs.
Should I make it from here, Chair?
Please.
Okay. The item in question is Section 605, nonpartisan elections, and in particular, the paragraph that says, in the event that more than two candidates have qualified for any single office under the charter government, an election shall be held at the time of the first primary election, and providing no candidate receives a majority of votes cast, the two candidates receiving the most votes shall be placed on the ballot for the general election. There are two problems, Mr. Chair, with this procedure. As you can see on the chart on the back of if you flip it over, as you can see in the recent elections data, the primary election does not draw a sufficient turnout of no party affiliation voters to establish the legitimacy of a winner, in that the two major parties constitute a disproportionate share of the turnout. So if you look at that chart and you see in the primaries, Democrats, Republicans, and NPAs, even though NPAs represent 30.8% of all Orange County voters, only 13.06, 13.44, 12, et cetera, down to 10.96. So less than half, in some cases much less than half of NPAs vote in that primary election. And secondly, the percentage of voters that can select a winner in the primary election, should someone receive 50% plus one vote, range from 8.17% of the electorate to 12.67% of the electorate. These positions are too important in the governance of Orange County to be left to 1 in 8 registered voters. So by striking, the proposal is to strike, providing no candidate receives a majority of the votes cast. The top two vote getters would move to the general election, and the general election voters would decide who the charter officers, for instance, the county commission, which county commissioner is elected in the general election and not in the primary election, and that's my proposal.
We've heard the presentation by Member O'Neill. Any discussion on the presentation or the motion, or the presentation?
Mr. Chairman, I'd recommend we put this on the Angel Committee about governance, and have the committee take this up and evaluate it.
Member Weinsberg.
Have you talked to the supervisor of elections about this, Mr. O'Neill?
That's where these figures come from.
Well, have you discussed it with the supervisor of elections, the gentleman himself, what his opinion is on doing this? No, you haven't. Okay.
Well, I don't see the purpose of the question.
Because Bill Cowles has a lot of insight into what ramifications changes like this cause, since he's been there for 30-some years, and oftentimes it gives you some insight before we even have to call him in and have him talk about it. So I just thought that would be the appropriate person to discuss this with when you're planning on making a major change. That's all I just asked.
Thank you. Member Rishi.
I just wanted to say, somebody who's been on a ballot recently, there is really one thing that I like about this, and I think why it deserves our study, is that we don't always realize that the NPA share of the vote is actually increasing. And so when you have more and more folks who are registered as NPA, that does give them a smaller and smaller voice, I guess, by having this election only be at the primary level. And I will tell you how many NPA folks, again, having just gone through this, think they can vote in a primary election. So they show up excited to vote for one candidate or another. They don't realize that we have a closed primary system, and so they can't. And often, I think that does depress votes for elections such as these, just because they know it's a closed primary system, so they don't quite realize it's a phase. So I think it is very important to, that's the system we have, a closed primary system, that it's really important to make sure NPA voters have a voice here, and so I tend to agree with this.
Are you sure it's a closed primary and a nonpartisan race?
I'm sorry?
It's not.
No, it's not, but I'm saying because
There's
there's a perception of that when there are so many other, when you're voting on who your congressperson's going to be, right?
I just want to correct the records. Anyone can vote in a nonpartisan race.
No question. I'm just saying that I think that in a primary level, the NPA vote is particularly depressed because so many NPA folks don't think that they can vote. So they don't realize there's a separate ballot for them, and they can vote on nonpartisan races. But I think that it makes sense to put these important issues on a general election rather than in a primary.
Yes, Member Staccato. Thank you.
Sorry for confusion
there. I had a conversation with SOE last BCC because I was considering trying to sync up like the city of Orlando to the primary or the general of the governors, like on the normal schedule. And he resisted that because he looked at it from a point of view of training, or it was a good practice run of a smaller election. But that was that election, and I still kind of feel that the cities take advantage of that because all the precincts are totally messed up during those cycles, and there's a cost savings. But I do support O'Neill's motion here to do this because I think the perception is that, and I put my league hat on in trying to educate people that you can vote on the primary, but we have a real education problem in civics in this state of teaching the citizens and when they can, and there's a confusion because there is partisan races, but then there's nonpartisan, as the chair has said, and he's 100% correct about that. But there's a perception, and I'm not sure, since we're not even legally allowed, I think, to even educate people from the government anymore of what citizens can do. I think the legislature might have restricted us on some of that. I think it's really important that we keep it simple and try to get all the elections in one cycle. So we get the objective is get the citizens to vote. And that's the objective, at least for me, to make sure they can vote. So let's make it as simple as possible. So if that means we need to look at this and try to address it in our government committee, I'm cool with that.
Thank you. Member DiPatello.
Chairman, Mayor Deming sent a memo last month. How does this compare? How does Member O'Neill's compare with Mayor Deming's proposal?
Yeah. And I gave you some language too.
Trying to make it red. All right. I actually did get further clarification from the county attorney's office concerning the mayor's recommendation. And it's one of those things where you read something 7, 8, or 9 times, and then it finally jumps out at you. The mayor's recommendation is a very insightful one, but it's only for drafting clarification. It is not changing any of the policy of Section 605, okay? Basically, what the mayor's insight in looking at this was, the second paragraph here in 605 never actually explicitly, affirmatively states, the way you would normally want to draft something like this, never explicitly, affirmatively states that if more than 2 candidates have qualified and one of them receives a majority of the votes cast, then they went out and they don't have to go to November. Yeah, that is all, but it's a very good insight from a drafting standpoint. That was all the mayor's recommendation was. Is if the intention is to maintain it exactly as it is, and the mayor made no recommendation of changing it, then it might be reworded to be more clear and direct. So that was the mayor's thought with regard to it. That I would suggest to you is kind of a cleanup or drafting recommendation, not address one way or to the other to the matter on the floor here. It just happens to be the same section.
Okay, Member O'Neill, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to take mine off.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor, I believe, by Member Callen to study this proposal in reflection upon what the counselor just said. Would it suffice the mayor's request if we study what a qualified candidate is? What constitutes a qualified candidate?
Let me be clear, that was not what the mayor was addressed to at all with regard to definitions or anything like that. It was simply that the drafting of that second paragraph impliedly gets to the result that any attorney reading it would get to, which is if you have more than two and one gets more than 50%, that paragraph means that they went out. It's not drafted well. I'll be really plain. That's all it is. His recommendation had nothing to do with what a qualified candidate means or anything like that.
Okay, one last point, Counselor. The Supervisor of Elections did talk about how there was confusion about what a qualified candidate is. Is a qualified candidate a write-in person? And that was brought up by Bill Kells. Could we add that to this motion?
I think that's to be decided by the Supervisor of Elections.
It's actually, he suggested that the charter, excuse me.
No, Member Weinsberg.
The Supervisor of Election did say that there was confusion as to what that means. And it went to a legal opinion, I think, by Woody Rodriguez, that did include a write-in candidate. But it's not that he determined it, is he went based on the legal opinion, but it does need to be clarified by the charter.
Chairman.
I'm just going to add, one, I've been through two of these elections, actually three, and I won two of them. It's expensive to run for office. That's the first thing. If you're able to pull this off in a primary, it's like almost a miracle. It's nearly never done. It's nearly never done. But if you are able to get it, just think of the amount of work you have to do to win it. The big picture is something we're not even considering. If you're worried about that, the big picture is whether they should be partisan or nonpartisan. That's bigger. That's the big policy issue. But in terms of manipulating this to have candidates go to the general election when the majority of them are going to the general election anyway. My first race, I didn't get 51%. I got the majority of the votes. But the two of us ended up going to the general, and then God blessed me and I won. The second race was the same. There were 5 or 6 people, and I still had to go to the general election. So most candidates are already going to the general election. So we're fixing something that's not broken.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
Member O'Neill, we allowed you to have the floor, so we'll have it back if you just hit your button. But that would be my comment. That we're expanding the cost. We're fixing something that's not broken. And is most candidates are already going to the general election. I would be opposed to the motion, but we do have a motion. I'll call for question on the motion. We don't have a second. We have a motion. We don't have a
There's
second.
no second.
I second it.
We have a motion made by Member Callen and seconded by Member Rishi. And I call for.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question. Just clarification. We will review Member O'Neill's proposal as well as the mayor's?
Just a clarification on the mayor's. The mayor's is something that should just simply go to the cleanup committee. It's just some typo information.
I believe, if anywhere, the mayor's suggestion could properly be addressed by the cleanup committee, yes.
It's a language issue.
The Woody Rodriguez opinion, the opinion by the county attorney, whoever it was, on write-in people, I would like to have us clarify that write-in people aren't qualified voters as part of our study, if that's okay.
It's totally up to the motion maker.
I would like to add that part to it, so we would clarify that.
The second has agreed to that also. I've called for question. Is there a second on the question? Seeing none, we'll continue discussion. It's been seconded by Member Weinsberg. Any discussion on calling for questions? Seeing none, all in favor of calling for question on the motion signify by aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Now for a vote on the main motion, and if clerk will repeat the motion.
There's a motion on the floor to move the topic to the Governmental Structure Committee to study Section 605, nonpartisan elections, and clarify write-ins.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? We finished discussion. We've had call for questions. All in favor of the motion signify by aye.
Aye.
Chair votes no. Thank you very much. Great presentation. Great issue. Item number C, our proposed charter review topic, which is to discuss wetlands, water quality, and flooding. The proposal has met our criteria to be placed on the agenda. It's brought to us by Gabrielle Milch. Thank you. You have the floor. Please state your name, your issue, and where you're from.
Good evening. My name is Gabrielle Milch, and I live at 252 Copel Drive in Longwood, Florida. I work for the St. Johns River Keeper Organization, a nonprofit organization that advocates for clean water in the St. Johns River. I also am a elected official in Seminole County on the Seminole Soil and Water Conservation Board. And I appreciate your time here today, and I wanted to do this presentation a little bit about myself. I've worked in local government for different water-related issues. I was a stormwater lakes manager for the city of Maitland. I was the water conservation coordinator for the city of Ocoee. I also work for the St. Johns River Water Management District as a regulatory scientist doing enforcement and compliance, and also working in regulatory permitting as well. So I have a 35-year background on water, and I've been following the issue for many years. Could change, please? So a little bit of background about the hydrologic cycle. I'm sure this brings you back to college science or high school science, but you know, in Florida we get an average of 54 inches of rainfall, typically was what we get, and that usually comes within the hurricane season, and our driest month of the year is April. So April showers don't bring Mayflowers in Florida. And our aquifer is a very large unit of water that is under the ground that we have tapped into, and you all may know a lot about the aquifer, but the aquifer in some areas is having saltwater intrusion, and we are over pumping and pulling out more water than we are using. I mean, than we're replenishing in our in the areas where we can recharge our water. And so some of the issues with that is that we use water on our landscape. So 50% of our drinking water is typically used on the landscapes. And so we treat the water, we spend money on it, but we also have an issue in Florida of people who have private wells, and people who have private wells also have issues with the amount of water in the aquifer at different times not being available to them. So there has been times when some private wells are impacted by that. Okay. So I just really want to bring across the fact that it's just all one water. So the hydrologic cycle makes the water, the groundwater, the surface water, and the rainwater is all the same water, and we're using it in abundance. So what I would like to do is we need more citizens protection and for our quality of life for water, and a holistic approach to looking at water. In Orange County, we have a lot of silos of different departments with water, and I wish that there should be a question to have more discussion between the different types of water that we're using in Orange County. So with the population and what's going to transpire and grow here, we're looking at an increase, of course, in the next 10 years, as well as we have, 70 to 90 million people flushing and using shower water and all of the ways that our tourists use water. So water is critical, and we do have harm that is happening to our aquifer. Our springs are declining in the amount of water that it's coming out of the springs. We have water quality problems. And wetlands are a integral part of our water system, and we have been developing wetlands over time, and we've lost a lot of storage space. And with our stormwater management systems, we've lost storage space for the rainfalls. And Orange County is studying several of these things staff-wise and has done presentations for the commission, and right now they're going through a wetlands rule revision, and there has been a national problem with wetlands being allowed to be developed through the 404 permitting at the Army Corps of Engineers, so less protections for the wetlands. And you can see here on the chart, it shows the different types of wetlands that we have in Orange County and also the acreages of it. So we have almost 1 million acres of wetlands in Orange County, and we are the headwaters of the Everglades as well as the headwaters of the St. Johns River. So somewhere along the middle of Orange County is that magical line where the drainage basins change. Okay. There you go. Don't pour your coffee out there. So with the projected growth and the restraints, the constraints and the cost to the citizens, we've kind of plowed through some of our cheap water. And so now we're getting into the production of reuse water. And reuse water is a good thing, but it's not necessarily treated for pollutant loadings to the best levels. And so it's high in nutrients. It has the pills that we take, it has different chemicals in it. And so when we're using that on our lawns and things, we're percolating some of that back down and getting it into the aquifer, which can affect people in the, if you have a private well. And I've run into this, unfortunately, in Seminole County, where we have a pollution problem with this man-made chemical that's a forever chemical called 1,4-dioxane. Hopefully we won't find that in Orange County. But you can see here some of the maps that I gave you all are some of the vegetation and plants, uptake the water. So that needs to have water in our wetlands. The public and private utilities, Orange County Utilities does a great job of innovation, and some of the programs that they have for water conservation and education are good. But there's other utilities besides just the public utilities. There's also private utilities, and I don't think that they have to do as much to protect our water resources as the public does. And also some of the problems with the private industry is that the infrastructure has gotten quite old, and we're at the lifetime of some of these systems. And so in some of these subdivisions, we have water problems with the systems and giving the water to the people, and then the treatment of the wastewater as well. So we also have a problem with fertilizers, and you can see the county has done a good job putting the water quality dashboard together to show us some of the pollutant loadings. And you can see here we have some lists of the problems with nutrients and heavy metals and bacteria from human waste that gets into our water. And so So there's another program for development that's called the NPDES, and that has to do with erosion and sediment control and water pollution as well. And Orange County has, stormwater management systems that they manage. And then there's ones, so there's over 2,027 ponds that the county manages, 95 miles of primary canals, 85 miles of other types of canals. And so they have, a staff to do that. But then there's the private subdivisions that have stormwater management systems that are out of compliance, and so they can cause flooding in areas if they're not maintained. So the county, tries to work with them on that. And so the current work that's going on with water in Orange County is, the flooding, nutrients and man-made pollutions, regulated and unregulated chemicals, problems with our upper aquifer, saltwater intrusion. And I feel like I'm Debbie Downer here telling you about all these things, but also stormwater pollution. And so that comes with all the things we put on the hard surfaces. And the more hard surfaces we put out there, the more pollutant loadings we have. So it also impacts our biodiversity in our natural areas and our rivers, lakes, and streams. So how can we devise a better integrated approach to all of this? If you don't mind. Okay. So at this point, I would say our solutions require better evaluations, planning, implementation, and action. And I would like to see if we can invest in change our practices to take care of water issues in the future.
Thank you. And one question before we start. What is your proposed action?
To create a committee to study and integrate the water, the way we use water, or the way we to integrate the study of water.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I do have one other question. On the last page, it says, I'm asking the commission to create a charter question committee to study a One Florida holistic water program.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
That would be to get all the departments to get into one space and continue to study, get solutions for our water problems in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Instead of silos.
Great presentation. If you'll stand for a few questions from the board, we'd appreciate it. Member Weinsberg.
First of all, I want to commend you for taking on the thankless job of getting elected to the Soil and Water Board of
Yes.
Seminole County or any other county, because if anyone knows, it's an unpaid position. You have to run for it. You have to do a campaign, and then you go around and on your own time and money do presentations like this. My friend Karen Harriet, I think, is your chair, and she's a school teacher, and I tell her she's crazy. This was an excellent presentation, and you're absolutely right that we do need some kind of an overall one policy. Not sure it's a charter issue, but thank you for the presentation, and thank you for your time. And someone has, as Mr. O'Neill says, someone has to talk about water. So thank you for doing it.
Well, thank you very much. Member Staccato.
Okay, my friend Gabby, I really appreciate you doing this. And her and I have talked much. I've known her for many, many decades. And what the commissioner had talked about was annexations, the flooding issues, and that's part of this whole problem that we're having about how do we as a county deal with as a basins. We have 7 basins, 8 basins?
11.
11 basins in our county. And each one of those are owned somewhat by the county, some by cities. And annexation, if the developer doesn't get the right deal, they move to that. And we have baseline rules. But Orange County, to its credit, we have a great EPD department, and they have done an excellent job. And one of the intentions that I would like us, and this is why it is a question for the charter, because it's the only place that we can do this, that we set minimum standards, or consider to do that, using Orange County rules, as the current and the future ones, to be applicable not only to the county, but also to the cities. Because we got to take some of the incentive from developers from trying to find the lowest common denominator to do their deals. And it only hurts all of us, because the flooding doesn't respect geographical government lines. It's going to be in that basin, and we see, like when the city of Orlando filled in 47 acres in the Lower Wekiva Basin off of Princeton to create their new thing, Packing District, that's just going to increase flooding downstream, ultimately into our sister county of Seminole. And the same thing can be said about the Shingle Creek issue, where they want to fill in 261 acres, and that's going to cause massive problems in Osceola County. So somehow the water doesn't respect government. It goes where it goes, to the lowest energy level. And that's why we need to consider a committee to come up with a policy or some rule that the county sets the minimum standards and of it. So I have a motion, but I'm going to allow everyone to talk about this before. Thank you.
Member O'Neill.
Mrs. Milch, as far as narrowing this down into something that we can do as a charter committee, would you be favorable if we formed a committee to study the creation of a water advisory board to advise the Board of County Commissioners on all facets that impact the county's water?
I think that would be it's like transportation. There's a small number of people who are knowledgeable. I mean, we have the Central Florida Water Initiative, but that's really, they've expanded that so large. But in Orange County, I don't know if we would have that group of people to do something like that.
Do you mean there are not enough people with expertise on water issues in Orange County? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, no. That definitely not. But yeah,
we do.
Yeah.
But
for development, I guess.
I agree with the
Yeah.
commissioner. But
Please.
we have the people. But if we had an advisory board, just like we have advisory boards on zoning and all other issues, why not water? I mean, this meeting has come full circle. We started talking about water with Commissioner Uribe, and now we're talking about water again. I just think that there needs to be some kind of concerted advisory group that the Board of County Commissioners can turn to, or they can go to and say, look, you're about to pave over this. That's not a good idea. Or why don't we do something with stormwater a different way?
Member Callan.
There's a Conway Lake Navigation Board. It does look water quality, water issues. There's one over in the district, the lake over in Windermere, that chain. There's also on water usage, there's OUC in their CUP. There's the CUP Consumptive Use Permit by Orange County Utilities. There's Winter Park has one, Maitland has one, private utilities, all that stuff's there. This may be something, and Orange County may have a committee or advisory committee somewhere in public utilities or public works on some of these issues possibly too. So I would recommend to make a motion that we assign this to Mr. Grimer's committee.
Thank you. You didn't increase that by one.
Before we take a motion, the question that I have with this, one, your presentation was amazing, and Orange County and the state of Florida has been discussing water for a very long time. I mean, back when I was on the board in 1998, we were investing in projects way over in Cocoa to make sure that we didn't get saltwater intrusion into Orange County. And so we're heavily invested in that. I'm having trouble seeing where this is, I can understand the disjointedness of the program because of all the municipalities and everything. I get that. But I'm having trouble seeing where this is not being done by a multiplicity of organizations. So are you saying there needs to be some uniform unit to pull everything together? But I think they're trying to do that already. They may not have done a good job, but the counties, the municipalities, the various units of government throughout the state of Florida, they're really trying to do this. Now, they have not fixed it. So don't misunderstand me. The items you bring up are really big issues, but I know that these are issues that the various municipalities and governmental district municipalities all over the state are working on. So I'm not sure if this should be something that we should do, or should it be a citizens' initiative before the board of county commissioners. So this is what we want. I think one commissioner said, "What should our policy be that we're going to protect water?" I forget the exact motion, but that's something that's surely within our purview to do. We could say the policy is that we will make water something. We can do that, but I'm not sure that we would not be duplicating it. I think what the concern is that we should study it to see if we're duplicating it and if something needs to be created new, but I'm just not sure that that's the best use of resources right now. It would be my comment.
I guess the point is, as an individual who lives in Central Florida, is that we have water issues and we're not working on them very well together. So
Yes.
how can we unify that? I mean, they have reuse water for every one house of reuse water. In some of the projects, on average, you have to use 5 houses of water, so the return, and there's a big investment in it and everything, and this may not be the right place, but the pollution, every time we have a flood, all the septic tanks discharge, all the wastewater treatment plants discharge. So we're getting more and more pollution and more toxic materials and algae and things that are growing in our waters, which are decreasing our human health standards and our quality of life. So it might not be a charter review commission, but it's good to put it out into the open about water quality and about protection of our natural systems, which are being impacted.
Yeah, your presentation is very well done. I do know that Central Florida is heavily invested in this whole issue of water because we have a big problem with the aquifer. And if we mess up the aquifer, which is what we're trying to prevent, then we're in serious trouble. So your presentation is very good and very on point. Let's see what the other commissioners, other members think.
And one other thing, would be water conservation. I think a lot of us are afraid they don't ask people to conserve that 50% of water on irrigation. It's voluntary.
Let me hear from a few other members and see where we are. Sure.
Chair.
I only have Mr. Staccato.
Was there a seconder on that motion on Mr. Collins'
No, there's no
motion?
second on the motion to add Blackman.
Do you recognize O'Neill as the seconder?
O'Neill is recognized as a second. We always do that.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. There are no other. I see no other staff commission. No other members. Member Staccato, you've already spoken.
Well, I want to add, and the purpose of I think I was thinking that we were trying to do. We have a lot of groups studying water. We have it's a multiple head thing going on, but no one seems. We have a problem that continues, and what I see is cities annexing the county property and implementing their own rule set based on the basin management plans. But the Orange County has better rules than many times, and we have staff that actually is trained to do analysis, employed by this county. And I've seen it in a number of cities where we have issues of filling in hundreds of acres of wetlands in southeast Orange County, in the central part of the county, and it's causing flooding problems. And it's outside the control of the county, because if you put this as a advisory board to the county, they only can advise the county. They can't tell cities what to do. And that's what the charter specifically does. It gives us the ability to manage the entire county, including the cities, least setting the minimum levels as I understand the law. I might be
Yes,
wrong on that.
I see Member Grimer, but my experience with topics like this, they're so very complicated that what the county, not just Orange County, but what the counties and the cities generally do with something like this is it'll come before the board and they'll actually fund a study to decide how to consolidate these and how to work them out. I'm just not sure it's something that we should do. This would be a multi-year, multi-budget study to find out how to fix this problem. And so that would be my only comments. Someone else must have more experience on this as well, but I've had experience dealing with the water issue, and I've been to many of the seminars dealing with water and how we manage it, and I understand the process. But this is something that municipalities would spend a lot of money on, and we're already doing that. We need more.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Water is potable water issues.
Mm-hmm.
You got septic sewer issues.
Mm-hmm.
You got flood issues.
Mm-hmm.
You got flood issues. You got water quality issues. You got wetlands issues. I think it would be just overwhelming just to address one of those at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think water is a very broad term. I'd like to withdraw my motion, because I think right now we have a better motion, more concise motion than just discussing water and water quality in the county. That's a concern, so I'm going to withdraw my motion. If I can.
You can only withdraw your motion if the second is withdrawn, and legal can correct me on the Robert's rules. There's a rule for that. I know there's a rule for that.
As a very technical procedural matter, once there's a second, it's the full commission's motion. So if the seconder would withdraw as well, then there'd be no motion on the floor.
Okay, the main motion has been withdrawn. Who was the seconder? Member O'Neill. The question is the second withdrawn?
Can I speak on that?
Sure.
Mr. Chair, Section 704, I believe, of the county charter deals with water pollution, and it gives the county preeminence over cities regarding water pollution. So the policies, the words are already there, but they're empty words. They're empty words, sir, if nothing gets done. And it's frustrating for myself, and it's frustrating for people who, like Mrs. Milch, who year after year hear, well, we're working on this, the Water Management District's working on this, et cetera. Something needs to be done to unify these disparate organizations and efforts. And I see the only way is for the county to create an advisory board or a committee of knowledgeable people to advise the county commission on policy matters. So if Mr. Cowan, Member Cowan withdraws his motion, I would hope that he would come back with a revised motion, or some other member make a motion to that effect.
Does that mean?
If I could revise my motion, if we're going to send this to Mr. Grimmer's committee and deal with issues of intergovernmental coordination of pollution, flooding, and wetland removal.
Okay, I still have a question on that. It's the same motion, really. But
more specific.
What? You added a few words. What is it that's already in the charter that is not working? That's my question.
So, Chairman, let me go ahead and address that a little bit. And I can't speak to what's working or not working, but
You can.
I'll give you the language that's in the charter, and I'll tease out how what was just mentioned there could be additions to what's in the charter right now. So in the charter right now, as we've discussed, one of the fundamental powers of a county charter is to specify which ordinance prevail in the event of a conflict. County ordinance, municipal ordinances, all right? One of the biggest powers. Section 704B sets out county ordinances shall be effective within municipalities and shall prevail over municipal ordinances when the county sets minimum standards for A, regulating adult entertainment, B, protecting the environment by prohibiting or regulating air or water pollution. It goes on to deal with other things like gambling and all of this. And as to each of those, it ends by saying, but only to the extent that such minimum standards are stricter than the applicable municipal standards. So it sets up a standard for adult entertainment, protecting the environment by prohibiting or regulating air or water pollution, and gambling, whichever is stricter prevails. That's the rule. I would suggest to you that this second one here, the subsection B here relating to environmental matters, is pretty narrow. It's pretty specific. I mean, it's broad in its own way, but it is protecting it's not protecting the environment. And I would suggest that might be a little broad for any attorney to interpret what it means. But protecting the environment by prohibiting or regulating air or water pollution. So it sets out two areas, prohibition or regulation of air pollution and water pollution, preempted to the county, or at least whichever is stricter is preempted. I would suggest, for example, that destruction of wetlands or mitigation requirements for wetlands doesn't fall within that. And there are others that don't fall within that.
Like encroachment on the 100-year floodplain.
Yeah.
And the 100-year floodplains are going through some revisions. So there's some merit to looking at these issues for preemption argument's sake, if that, or consider that possibly. There's a good argument on both sides, either side, so that's why I think it should be studied. I don't know. I feel strongly either way. So I think it should be looked at.
And I will say that I understand this issue probably as much or better than any other issue that's come before the board. I participated in these studies. I've been to a lot of the work sessions on these. These are things that generally take multi-years and multi-governmental agencies just to study and just to figure out. I believe it's too far reach for the board, even though I support what you're saying. I know that it's being worked on by a whole lot of groups, and it's disjointed. And the charter currently does not tell us what to do. So there's nothing wrong, I think, with us reviewing it. But from my perspective, it's a little bit too far reach for us to try to do before June. If we do it, I would suggest that it be a totally different committee. There's no way that this could happen by a standing committee we currently have. So as a chairman, even though I support the issue and I understand it very well, I would have to vote against the motion, but it's up to the membership as to which direction they want to go. If someone can call a question so we can.
Call the question.
Question has been called by Member O'Neill. Is there a second on the question?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Member Weinsberg. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the question? Seeing none, we'll hold a motion on the question to call for question. All in favor signify by aye. All opposed signify by nay. All in favor of the motion signify by raising your hand. The motion is call for questions. Call for question.
Oh, call the question? Okay.
All in favor of calling for question signify by aye. Aye. The motion to call for question carries. Now for a motion, a vote on the main motion. If staff will read the main motion as best you can.
There's a motion on the floor to move the topic to the Sustainable Growth and Charter Cleanup Committee to study intergovernmental coordination on pollution, water quality, and flooding. That's the motion on the floor, sir.
Did you specifically say to move it to that committee? Well, we've already had questions, so it's no longer under discussion. Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by aye. All opposed signify by nay. Nay. The motion fails.
Chair, if we could do a roll call.
I'll do
on
a
that
roll.
vote.
Roll call vote. All in favor, raise your hand.
Chair, can I just announce the members' names and they can say yes or no? That would be easier.
Go ahead. That'll
Okay,
be
thank
just
you.
terrific.
Member Jackson? Member De La Portilla? No. Member Weinsberg? No. Member Callen?
Can I vote against my own motion?
Yes. Yes, you can.
Yes, you
I'll
can.
go yes, because I put the motion.
Member Chair Hartage?
Nay. I volunteer for this public.
Member Grimmer? Member Baga? No. Member O'Neill? Yes. Member Staccardo? Yes. The motion fails.
We all volunteer for this job, so. But I can tell you that I participated on a lot of boards, and beyond a shadow of a doubt, this is the smartest board I've ever participated on. Just a tremendous group of people, and the work that the chairmen have put in has been unbelievable. So it's been, even though you see us disagreeing back and forth, it hasn't been a heavy lift for any of us at all. It's just been a really good board. We're at the end of our agenda, and by policy, we have member comments at the end of our meetings. It says that the chair has to remember my notes say to remind each board member that they only have 2 minutes. But if we have any comments, you're welcome to make them at the end of the meeting. If you have no comments, then we'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Here's a question.
Yes.
Dr. Hartage.
Thank you.
The question is, when a subject comes up, and I don't think this is covered in the bylaws,
Yeah.
when a subject comes up like this,
Yeah.
and there's more thought given to it in a following meeting, in a revised motion, is, okay, answer, please. Well, I mean, once this comes up, is that it for this charter commission? That can't be studied again, or can it be reconfigured and come back?
Yes, I thought that's where you were going.
Thank you.
We don't have that in our charter. I'm going to ask staff if they'll make that as one of the notes that we'll leave for the next CRC as to how we handle things once they've come up. But I can tell you what we've done in the past. Transportation has been handled just that way. Transportation was brought up about 3 meetings ago, and we just today decided that we would set up a study group to see if we can establish a policy. So I don't know, I know it's not in our bylaws, but in practice, we've allowed things to come back up. So I think that would still be appropriate. If some member came back next meeting and says, oops, we forgot this, and we had a motion for it, I would entertain it.
I believe Robert Rules does address that, so a parliamentarian could look at that. I don't know how you do that. The affirmative side could actually make the motion to bring it back.
Yes.
It's a lot simpler than that because this was a motion, let's take the one that just happened. This is a motion that failed. No action was taken. As a result, another motion could be offered. There's no need for all the rules for reconsideration or anything like that. It's only undoing something that has been done that you need to.
And Ms. Melcher, that means that we respect the presentation you made, and we actually see these as issues. And if some member finds that there's a way that we can approach it as a policy issue, that we're open to it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one question. There's an issue that came up in our governance committee meeting from comments that we haven't addressed yet. So I'm going to, if it's appropriate, I'll submit some language to the secretary and the county attorney for consideration on the hindrance language in the charter, as well as having the administrator also report to the board.
Okay, thank you. And my notes indicate that the December meeting will be canceled. Our next meeting will be January the 15th. Committees are welcome to continue their meetings through December if they choose. Any other comments for the good of the order?
Clarification on what Mr. Callen said. The suggestion that our committee looks at the county administrator, is that we're going to need full authority from the board.
What did you just say?
Okay.
Yeah, well, what I want to do is I'm going to ask the board to have Mr. De La Portilla's committee look at the hindrance clause of the charter, as well as having the county administrator also serve at the pleasure of the board and the mayor jointly.
I think that, thank you for the clarification, Mr. Depatillo. That will be something that we have to come up as a motion during our regular meeting and be voted on to be added to a committee. We can't just add it.
Right, I'll send
Okay.
it to them first, and then
Okay.
take it up in January.
All right, and just to reiterate, by sunshine law, we do not meet or talk or collaborate between these meetings with each other, only with staff. But I do think that the transportation issue raises to the level where there should be a couple of private meetings. It will be posted. Any member of the public is welcome to attend or not attend. That was a joke. That was a joke. Any member of the public is welcome to attend, as well as any board members. But my recommendation is that Mr. Callan and I have a meeting to try to see if we can develop a policy to bring back to the board. No guarantees, but we're going to put our best effort at it. And staff will coordinate that and let us know what works. We have a motion to adjourn by Member Grimmer. All in favor, please signify by aye. Is there a second?
Second.
A second. Second, Member Staccato. All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. We're so adjourned. Thank you. Great meeting. Thank you, public, for coming.